Broadcasting live to the UK. News, information, entertainment, and the best music from the past 40 years. This is Play 2 UK. Tommy Boyd. Call 01243 55 60 60. Email studio@playradiouk.com. Skype play.radio.uk. Now, live from the south coast of England, the Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
Good evening in the UK, good day around the world. Hello if you're podcasting this. It's Tommy here with Fiona. Good evening, Fiona.
Good evening, how are you?
Catherine Catt will be along later. She is our arts and tarts and Christmas shopping. I've got an email already as we were listening to the intro from Steve Robert. Thanks for that, Steve. Amongst other things, very flattering about the Arts and Tarts show. He suggests we call Catherine. Catherine will be with us from around about 10 o'clock.
She certainly will.
And Catherine is a professional full-time sex worker who exotically, her home is her office. She has one of the rooms in her mansion done out as a dungeon. Fantastic. And whenever possible, she broadcasts to us and you, good listener, from her dungeon, talking about the world of arts, because she is something of an aficionado, a connoisseur. She likes the arts, opera, high art, Japanese film, the novels of Henry James. She's also quite happy to review the latest thing on television. And she also reviewed when she went to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant, or one of his restaurants. She went there because one of her clients was taking her for an anniversary lunch. It was 160 quid a head. Give you some idea, good listener, of the kind of life you might have led if you had gone down that delightful, if sticky road. But that's what Catherine Catt does for a living, a professional sex worker. She's quite happy to be called a hooker or a tart, which is what she does. But she also represents people in the sex industry, so she's she's got some clout. Some of her clients, no doubt, are drawn to. Anywho, that's from around about 10 o'clock. One of the things that we're going to be talking about today, gentle listener, is conspiracy theories. And the reason for it is A, because everybody's very interested in them, but B, and this should be A really, but I've done A, and nothing comes before A, so I can't go back and put this reason before A, having made A the fact that everybody's interested in them. Because there is a reason that's more important than that. But it's got to be B.
Okay.
This is a bastard of alphabet and consecutive things.
Right.
Freud says that the reason we don't remember our dreams is because the action isn't consecutive. He says that in life, action is consecutive, and so we can remember things because they come in an order.
Mm-hmm.
That follows that follows that.
Yeah.
And there's a certain logic to that. But in dreams, there's no logic.
No.
He says none of us could remember the 26 letters of the alphabet if somebody hadn't placed them in order. And who says they have to be in order? They don't, do they? They're 26 totally random, separate items. But somebody put them in order and decided that A was first. And if you don't stop and think about it, you think, well, it has to be like that, because A obviously comes before B. And Z naturally comes last. That's totally random, isn't it?
Yeah, because they do say that you can usually only remember 7 consecutive items, but with that, that's off. You're looking at me like that.
No, I'll tell you what you couldn't do. Okay, right now. Not in any order, Fiona
Right.
Dutton. Give me the 26 letters of the alphabet. In no order. You're not allowed to do any that follow each other, right? Starting with, go.
Okay.
Yes.
X.
M.
P.
A.
D.
That's good.
T. S.
Yes, that's very good.
W.
I'm going to reckon you're going to get 18 and then you'll be
L.
totally stuck. L.
Have I said N?
No, you haven't said N there.
Oh, it's like hangman.
Yeah.
B. G.
G.
J. Q. E.
You're doing well.
Y. Have I said Y?
No.
V. C.
Yeah.
I might be duplicating. Does it matter if I duplicate?
You've done 18, which is
Does it
pretty
matter
good.
if I duplicate? Have I said S?
Yeah, you have. So I'm not going to let you go much further.
Okay.
Because you don't know, do you?
Well, I don't know what.
Well, you don't know which ones you've done and which ones you haven't.
No, exactly.
Because because you can't. Nobody can do the alphabet except consecutively. And that's why, when I say that there is a more important reason why we shall be discussing conspiracies tonight than the fact that everybody's interested in them, but having called that A, I can't now promote anything before that, which is what I want to do. I could make it 1, and therefore my previous reason will become 1B.
What about in reverse order?
No, a question for Catherine. Paul Hemmings has, Paul of Farringdon, has a question for Farringdon? Farringdon for Catherine. He's emailed in. Good evening to you, Paul. Thank you for this. Our email address, I'll remind you in just a second. He says, would you rather go to heaven for the weather or hell for the company? It's a very good question, isn't it? I don't want to go to heaven because all the people I've come across who are likely to end up in heaven are so boring. All the people who come up to you at parties with a little crucifix on their thing. Oh, God, they're tedious.
My 3-year-old boy said to me on Sunday, well, actually, my 5-year-old boy said to me on Sunday, Mummy, what are we doing today? And I said, oh, I'm not quite sure yet. And my 3-year-old piped up, Mummy, are we going to heaven today? By which I quickly replied, I do hope not.
Now, you see, here's a gap in the market. Because those 2 lads from Brighton who set up a Santa's Lapland adventure in the New Forest, and it's all come unstuck.
Yeah.
With various customers who are very upset. Got in the national press, this, didn't it? It was on News at 10. Front page of the Sunday Mirror, Daily Mirror, somebody told me.
Yeah.
There's a very successful one, I believe, in Kent, where they blow snow everywhere, they have log cabins, they have huge reindeer and sleds and proper elves. I don't know where they get them from. What with so much business going on at the moment in Snow White, and the 7 Dwarfs, I can't imagine that people who are no more than 3 feet tall must be terribly in demand through November, December, and then nothing. Anyway, the one in Kent's going really well, but the one in the New Forest died on its arse, basically. With a couple of customers saying it was like a car boot sale, and they couldn't find Santa anywhere, so they went round the corner of this sort of what was supposed to be a log cabin, but apparently it was one of those prefab sheds you can buy. And he was there having a fag. So it's closed. But what a great experience it would be, wouldn't it? Heaven. Wouldn't that be an experience?
Yeah.
Would you take your children to heaven? You would, wouldn't you?
Well, I don't know.
You would, though, because the idea that you live forever and that you'll get to see Grandma again is what takes you through the otherwise appallingly traumatic first 6 or 7 years of your life. You believed in heaven, didn't you? Utterly, until you were about 18. Yes. And wasn't that massively comforting?
But I'm just wondering if when we got there, the children would all be asking where their relatives were.
Yeah.
And the cat.
We'll take a quick call, although we've hardly got started yet. I'm grateful for your time. 01243 55 60 60. You're on Play Radio. Who's this?
Oh my God, it's Percy Clapham. How are you?
Hello, dear boy. I'm very well.
Oh God, this is the second time I've been on the television this weekend. I'm really excited but nervous.
Yes, me too. Anyway.
Well, yes. Don't get too excited, I know what that does to you. Bob Staunton told me.
Bob Staunton, I'm very excited about Bob Staunton coming back on the air. 1 or 2 people around this sort of portfolio of radio stations are a little bit uncomfortable about it, a little bit miffed, to tell the truth, but Bob will be here on Christmas Eve, which is fantastic, Percy, isn't it?
Well, because he takes an hour of your programme, doesn't he?
I don't mind that. Bob's a legend.
Yeah, but that's not the first time it's happened, has it?
I don't mind.
Bob, oh, yeah.
No, I don't mind.
You used to argue with him on BBC Southern County.
Yeah, we did have a bit of a bust-up at one point, but that's all resolved now. And he and I, will be absolutely fine. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, I saw it dropped off for a minute there. Bob and I will be absolutely fine. I remember Bob, when I was a boy and Radio 2 got going, I remember he was the weekend swing jock, and I can well remember him standing in for... Do you remember the Mid-Morning Man on Saturdays, Andy Turnbull?
I've heard of him, yes.
Well, Bob, I remember Bob standing in for him on a number of occasions and doing a great job, and that's National Radio 2, and we all know, what that became in terms of national treasures. So...
Well, I'm more into it when he's got a quiz or he's talking about pigeons and things like that.
We're looking forward to his wisdom. I don't know what he's got lined up, but it's going to be unmissable radio on... It's not Christmassy. I believe it's the 23rd, actually.
Yeah,
December.
Tuesday, isn't it?
Yes, Tuesday it is. And Big Bob, I've been to his website. He's not looking much worse than he was looking about 4 years ago.
Well, I actually don't know what he looks like recently, because he hasn't spoke to me since he got sacked from the Southern Counties.
He's a big lad, as you know. If you've ever seen a picture of Bob, go to his website. I think if you go to Google Bob Staunton, he's a big lad. He's not always clean-shaven, and he's usually pictured sitting in the corner of a bar. But that's Bob, and we're all different.
He's like a gentle giant, isn't he? Like, maybe a Hulk Hogan with a few extra pounds.
No, listen, Percy, thank you very much indeed for your call. I don't know about a gentle giant, more like a fat thug. But thank you for your call. 01243 55 60 60. And I have this from Ivan Brackenbury, who's just texted in. Thank you for this, Ivan. He says, after listening to our local fool, Les Ross, and your enjoyment of his work, have you heard of stand-up hospital radio comedian Ivan Brackenbury? His live show is just about the funniest thing I've heard in ages. What are you laughing at over there, Fanny? What have you gone for? Are you what? Have you seen something we haven't?
No, it's just the email wasn't from Ivan. It was about Ivan.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Oh, so it is, yeah. Oh, it's from Lee Wickstead. Okay.
Oh, dear.
Well, shall we... let's put that in our pocket, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
And get to it later.
Yes.
Because I've been slightly diverted from my point, which is the main reason we should discuss conspiracy theories today.
Right.
Well, I'll get to my main point in just a second. Earlier on, if you were listening, good afternoon. It's February 2009. I started the show by saying that besides welcoming Catherine Catt to the programme, who is our professional sex worker, and by the way, gentlemen in particular, if there are any questions that you've always wanted to ask somebody who is not in the slightest bit phased by sex, any aspect of sex, and when I say any aspect of sex, I mean any aspect of sex. Any. Even some of those aspects of sex, gentlemen, which lurk in the most inaccessible, darkest reaches of your libidos. If there's anything you've ever wanted to ask somebody who knows more than anybody you will ever meet or talk to about sex, then now's your chance. You can email me now, studio@playradiouk.com, and Catherine Catt will be along at 10 o'clock. But we're also talking about conspiracies. Two reasons. One, because lots of people are very, very interested in conspiracies. I am, Fiona. Are you?
I am.
Are you?
Sorry?
But it's usually men who are interested in conspiracies. Women are more interested in cooking and mending.
Oh,
No,
really? I
just
don't think. Cooking up
it's just a
conspiracies,
silly-
maybe.
A silly joke. Okay, but there was a big reason why I wanted to talk about conspiracies today, and that is because today, it was on this day in 1980, that John Lennon was shot, murdered, assassinated. Some people feel that he had such political power, or influence, rather, that his murder was an assassination. And there are those, you see, who subscribe to the conspiracy theories surrounding Lennon, who believe that it was a bona fide assassination because it was carried out entirely for political reasons,
Right.
and not the reasons which the court found that Mark Chapman shot him for, which was because he wanted to be famous or notorious.
Right. What do you think?
What do I think? I think Mark Chapman was a nutcase who shot him because he was out of control of what he was doing and he was overtaken by events. That's what I think.
Right.
But we'll come to that a little bit later on. We'll also talk about conspiracy theories in general, because they are very diverting. And last week we had the lad who has spent 7 years in prison for crimes which were committed in pursuit of his belief that animals are being badly treated in medical research centres, trying to persuade us that 9/11 was a conspiracy and that there's a World Bank which is running everything, and that George Bush and the Queen are related, and that he was about to go on, I think, to say, and I think he believes this, but he didn't actually say it on this show, but I'm told by the people that David Icke believes this, that the Queen and possibly George Best... You pass that bottle of vodka over. Yes, the Queen and George Best are both lizards.
It sounds like something out of Doctor Who. Lizards.
Vaguely reptilian. Something to do with the fact that the dinosaurs didn't die out, they just sort of...
evolved.
Yes, they took over. Yes, but I don't know. Or they come from another planet. Which is what the Scientologists sort of believe, in that our souls came from another planet and embedded themselves in the highest life form they could find, which was the 212th ape. But is that a conspiracy theory? Because if the basis of what Scientologists believe can be considered somehow a conspiracy theory, then so could the Bible and the Quran. Which is hot water if you want it.
What makes something a conspiracy theory?
Okay. Well, what do you think at home, or listening, or on your PC, or on your laptop, or if you're podcasting this in the year 2027, and you're allowed by the ruling lizards to have your own thoughts? You don't know. Can you imagine? Come back. And we're all penned in fields waiting to be abattoired. And the lizards are out, you know, and they're running their own kind of TV and radio. They've got what they want, finally. You know, the X Factor is all about, you know, who can lay the best egg, or I don't know. Who can eat who can eat the most live mice in 3 minutes. John Sargent still does well. Gets to the quarters. Pulls out. I'm going to have to take a break. Don't make me laugh.
No.
Got the news over there. Oh, you're going to read the news.
Why
Excellent.
not?
Play 2 UK headlines.
One of the officials at the centre of the Baby P child abuser case has been dismissed with immediate effect. Sharon Shoesmith, who was head of children's services at Haringey Council in London, had already been suspended on full pay. But a panel of councillors has decided she'll receive no compensation. The toddler died after months of abuse despite being on the authorities' at-risk register. A Frenchman's been jailed for life for trying to kill schoolgirl Jessica Knight. The 14-year-old was walking through a park at Chorley in Lancashire listening to her iPod when she was stabbed 20 times. Police are dealing with what they describe as a disturbance at a young offenders prison in Aylesbury. Officers were called to the incident this morning and quickly cordoned off the site in Buckinghamshire. Security at Stansted Airport is under urgent review after environmental campaigners broke in. More than 50 flights were cancelled when they blocked the runway. Police have made 57 arrests. And today's been dubbed Mega Monday for online Christmas presents. More than 2 million are expected to be bought over the net.
Play 2 UK weather.
Rain affecting southern areas of England and Wales will spread steadily southeastwards, clearing the far southeast around dawn. Otherwise dry and clear with frost forming inland, but with scattered showers on western coasts and hills, these wintry over northern hills. Looking on to tomorrow, many areas dry and sunny but cold. Some showers on western coasts and hills, these wintry over northern hills. Feeling cold in the northwesterly breeze.
You're up to date on Play 2 UK. PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation.
Right then, what was the web address?
passiononline.co.uk.
Oh, you would look really sexy in that. Okay, that's in the shopping cart.
Imagine the fun we could have with them.
Yeah. Okay, I've ordered something for you. Something for us. How about this for me?
ClickPassionOnline.co.uk has something for everybody, with a fast, discreet delivery service, competitive pricing, and a free gift with every order for a limited time. See our massive product mix online right now. ClickPassionOnline.co.uk, the world's sexiest online shop.
Play 2 UK is proud to announce that Catherine Catt joins our unique schedule of talk hosts. Catherine is a world-renowned lady of the night and connoisseur of literature, opera, sculpture and performance. She joins us every Monday from 10, ready to talk about affairs of the heart and the world of art, as you would never hear anywhere else. From 10, Mondays on Play 2 UK.
PlayRadioUK.com is dedicated to providing you with a fully interactive website and music service. Choose from 13 stations playing all kinds of music 24 hours a day. Find answers to your technical questions. Podcast your favourite shows. Download content to your mobile phone. Interact with other users in our forum. Buy music from your favourite artists and find out who's on when and what we're up to. PlayRadioUK.com. Internet radio your way. The Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
It's the 8th of December, the anniversary of the assassination murder of John Lennon in New York. So we're talking conspiracy theories, because I honestly believe that the nuttiest, besides one or two plausible ones about Lennon's murder, the nuttiest conspiracy theory that I think I've ever heard is a conspiracy theory connected with the murder of John Lennon, which I'll get to a little bit later on, because that's what you do. Also going to be talking with Catherine Catt, looking forward to that in a little over an hour's time. And Catherine's been doing what, do we know, this week? We don't.
Well, she's had quite a busy week.
You take your time and look for it. Luckily, she's the organised one, she tells me. We'll find out what Catherine is going to be talking about a little bit in 5 minutes' time, but right now it's over to Chris, who's called in. Hello, Christopher.
Hey, Tommy.
Do you know, I'm pretty well. I was knackered all day today, but I had one of those 5-minute naps this afternoon, and it really seems to have turned me round.
Don't do that. It's dangerous if you get into that. I did that the other night. I went to sleep about 5 o'clock, and I woke up again at 10. Well, thinking I'd get up in about an hour's time.
Yeah, that's not a power nap, is it? Then that's just it's a sleep.
Yeah.
Of course you don't do that. You need to have that kind of. Can you not sort of nap whereby you're asleep but you're half awake?
No, I can't do that. See what I do is I get into bed with my clothes on. You know, just fully clothed, just get into bed.
Why?
I don't know. I just like it.
I know, it's comforting, isn't it? Yeah. It's the same like when you go to a hot country and all you need is a sheet over you. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
You don't feel cocooned.
Yeah, you need some sort of cushioning.
Well, you need to feel like you're back in the womb.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Protected.
If I ever go for a nap, I like to just strip off and roll into the duvet, because it just...
Is that why we like hot baths as well?
Hot baths? Yep. That's part of the reason. But don't let's leave the thought of Fiona stripping off. And Christopher, you missed a trick there. But I'm not going to.
Especially a really cold duvet.
A cold duvet?
Yes, so you can feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it to be body temperature in there. So what I did is what I used to do when I was small, before there was central heating. You'd go to bed and the sheets would be so cold, it was painful on your feet. So you'd ask to be allowed to keep your socks on. Yeah. But then you get into the bed, and what you do straight away is put the bedclothes up over your head and breathe. You go, and that would heat the bed up for you.
Right. Yeah.
I had this problem. Oh, yeah, go on.
No, I was just going to say that I don't like the room too hot. I do like getting into a cold bed. I don't like wearing socks in bed.
No.
I don't like socks at all. I have to say. I am slightly digressing now, but I don't like anything on my feet at all.
I know what you mean. If I'm required to laugh genuinely out loud, one trick, if I don't feel as though I can fake it, okay, is to think of a person, just a man, wearing nothing but a pair of fairly naff socks, standing there. And I'm now going to see if it works, Christopher, if I imagine you.
Yeah, it's already working. When you started saying it, I thought it's got something to do with socks. I was laughing already.
Yeah, I'm just imagining you standing there then.
Okay.
Yes, it works.
I have got socks on, but I do have other things
I know.
as well.
Yeah. So you went and had a 5-hour nap, and that screwed you over. Whereas you asked me if I was okay, and I said yes because I had a proper cat nap, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But you rang because.
Yeah. You know how you were sort of uncontrollably laughing before the news?
Yeah.
I was just thinking, maybe it would make the news more entertaining if you spent the whole time, whilst the other person's reading the news, trying to make them laugh.
Well, it would do, but there are some news stories you don't want to have that happen to. I mean, 14-year-old girls being stabbed 20 times.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
So this is it. Towards the end, you can.
Maybe you need something specifically that you should read out. And try and distract the person as much as you can.
Okay, well, Fiona's not here tomorrow night, so...
Oh, what a shame.
I know, it is. Steve Ball will be here from 8 until 10, and I'm looking for features from 10 until 12, and I'll be here on my own, apart from The Good Listener, which is, a departure, but I'm keen to see how that works out as a piece of communication. Thank you for your creative thinking, Christopher. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, and you.
Sleep well. But you see, that's student time, Fiona. He slept for 5 hours, and then if you sleep from 5 in the afternoon until 10 at night, you're not going to go to sleep until 4 in the morning, are you?
That's right. I have a question for you. You know when you have occasionally I will try and have a nap. I might have an hour or two where I think, if I'm going to be up late, I'm going to go and try and have a sleep. But I can never, ever go to sleep. The only time that I can go to sleep is if I have anything pressing to go to later in that day. If I know that the day is mine, then I can sleep. But if I've got a couple of hours that I just want to go and get my head down and get some sleep because I know that I'm going to need to, get some rest, but I can never actually go to sleep. I'm always in that sort of state where if somebody walked in the room and spoke to me, I'd be able to answer them straight away. Is that actually beneficial? That kind of sleep?
I think. What do you think? Listening, text, email, Skype, call, email studio@playradio.com. UK.com, studio@playradiouk.com. You can call 01243 55 60 60. The Skype address is play.radio.uk. How about the light? Have you ever used those eye shades that you can get on planes?
No.
That helps.
Does it?
Yes. Earplugs. Have you ever used earplugs?
Well,
that helps.
Right.
That
I don't think it's a noise factor, though.
No, but it just cocoons you. It introvertilises you.
Right.
I mean, if you're aware of the outside world, a lorry going past, seagull. That was a good seagull.
It was.
Do you want to hear my train barrier?
Go on, then.
Ding, 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 ding. That's good, isn't it? That's going through the night in France. It's very erotic and diverting if you're on a train going through France in the middle of the night. We caught a midnight train from Paris that was going all the way down to Spain. So all through the night, the train rattled through France, pitch black. And the guard came round with a little trolley. And he was selling this orange juice. We were only 14. It was a school trip. And it made us laugh because the orange juice was called shit with a P. And we thought that was fantastic. All we really wanted was some of his cognac. And he was prepared to sell it to us because it's compulsory in France if you're 14 to drink cognac. You're not allowed to drink soft drinks.
Really?
I made that bit up.
Yeah, I think
this was 1960-something. Anyway, so we all bought our bottles of shit. And we went back, and I was sleeping on the luggage rack. Because it was 8 to a carriage, and we couldn't stretch out. So we drew lots, and Podge Pembroke got the actual seat. He was a big lad. Because I was a gymnast, I was on the luggage rack, which was very uncomfortable.
I bet it was.
It was, because it was just netting, just like fish netting.
Bit like a hammock, then.
Yeah, except there were metal bars along it. So I had to balance a metal... Anyway, but all through the night, every time we went through a French level crossing, there was this really haunting noise that just went... Ding, 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 ding. And stay with me. Anyway. If you want to sleep, try eye shades and earplugs. You can buy these lovely yellow foam ones now that you squeeze, push in your ear, and they expand and fill your ear. And then it's
Really?
They're very good.
Do they really work?
Yep.
Earplugs.
And don't drink tea or coffee, you know, all those things. And you know the best way to have sleep in the afternoon?
Go on.
Is to have sex.
Yeah.
You know that.
You know.
But, well, I know, but it's not something you can organise, is it? And even if you can, it takes, you know, half an hour. By which time you're going to want to get going again because you've only got half an hour to have a nap. Did I ever tell you very quickly, just before we move on to the great conspiracy theories surrounding the assassination of John Lennon, which occurred on this day in 1980? Hand up at the back, Dutton.
I was just going to say, before we move on, is it the act of having sex, or is it the,
Endorphins.
Yes.
I blame them.
Okay. That's fine.
Whenever I hear endorphins, I always think of dolphins. I see all these little dolphins sort of, you know, going up and down through your bloodstream. They look like dolphins in my mind. That little smile.
Endorphins.
Yes. So, it's 1974, and I've landed the plum job of being senior traffic reporter on London's new start-up, all talk, all news, all the time radio station LBC, where news comes first. And I'm required to be at Scotland Yard at 5:30 in the morning. And living in Brighton, that's a bugger.
Yeah.
So, I rent a room in Kilburn.
Right.
Round the corner from where not one but 4 IRA operatives were living. And I know that because they used to go to the same restaurant as me, where I'd go in the evening to have my liver and bacon. And I used to hear them talking about it. This is the God's honest truth. About planting one here and planting one there and Golders Green and a 2-pounder. They were arrested about 6 weeks afterwards, and it was them.
Yeah.
They sat there, and I'm here. And they talked in Irish accents about bombs and things. And I'm working at Scotland Yard.
What do you mean they were talking about bombs and things?
One night, I heard them go, it could be a 2-pounder. What? You bought in Golders Green. What? You a propeller box. So I went home and I thought, well, it's not going to happen, I thought, but if a bomb goes off in Golders Green in a pillar box any time between now and Christmas, I'm going to have to mention it, aren't I? So I woke up the next morning and I turned on my little radio in my little room in Kilburn, right? And the headlines, Douglas Cameron, last night in Kilburn, a bomb exploded in a pillar box. The IRA have claimed responsibility. I thought, what the hell? It must be them, or they knew about it.
Well, you could have stopped that.
By the way, this is a God's honest truth story. It's ridiculous, isn't it? And so I then went to work, and I'm sat at Scotland Yard with a bloody great copper here, next to me, a bloody great copper that side of me, a bloody great copper opposite me, and I kept thinking, no, surely not. Don't make a fool of yourself. In any case, I had a job to do, which was to say, you know, that the elevated section of the M4 just going over Brentford was very solid this morning. So I got on with that. But here's my point. Have you ever heard of a broadcaster called Nicky Horn?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, he was doing a late-night show on Capital, and the bloke in the room next to me in this big house where I'd rented a room used to like to listen to Nicky Horn from 10 o'clock in the evening until midnight. Now, if you're up at 4:30, you don't want that, do you?
No.
But it wasn't actually in the same house. He was the adjoining house. And I couldn't be asked to go round, ring the doorbell, say, turn it down. You know, in any case, he might have been a big bloke. So, it's now 11:30, and I've got to be up to give a sort of a performance in about 5 hours' time. So what I did was... Have I told you this story?
No.
You sure?
Yeah.
Because I've told it before.
Well,
it's a bloody good one. It's a bloody good one, this. The woman who rented me the room in the house was Gabby Roslin's great aunt.
Really?
Yes. because I got recommended it by Gabby Roslin's dad, who was a newsreader. Clive wasn't at this place. Anyway, so it's 11:30 at night and I can't sleep because of Nicky Horn playing rock music. So I needed some earplugs. But this is 1974 and they don't do them. All I had was a little box of tea bags that I'd taken up there so I could make myself a cup of tea in my room, like you do. So I shredded one of the tea bags and I put it in one ear. Okay? And I shredded another one. I put that in the other ear. Things you do. And I went back to sleep. Now, I haven't mentioned that in the nicest possible way, Gabby Roslin's auntie was a little bit... a little bit... Ooh. She once said to me, do you know how to dust a house? I said, I don't. She said, well, she said, you must dust the highest places first, and then all the way down to the skirting boards, which you dust last. If you dust the skirting boards first, and then dust your mantelpiece and the top of your dresser, the dust from the dresser will fall on the skirting boards, you see. I said, oh, right. So she was a little bit... Now, here's the lovely bit of the story, right? 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up with this pounding pain in my right ear because the tea bag, right, was working its way towards my brain. You know, I'd been lying on that side and I'd pushed it in.
Really?
Yeah. So I'd screwed it up into a little ball and pushed it in.
It's dangerous.
I know. So I'm panicking now. And so I put on a pair of jeans and I padded along the corridor and I knocked on Mrs. Marine's door at 2:30 in the morning. And she came, she was a big woman and she was wearing a pink sort of dressing gown thing with white fur trim. And a wig on, poof, and a great big Edna Everage glasses. She was about 5'11". And she said, yes. And I said, Mrs. Marine, can you help me? I've got a tea bag lodged in one ear.
Oh, no.
And she just went, certainly. You see, there are times when eccentric people are what you want. Because a sensible person would have gone, I'm sorry.
Yes.
And I'd have had to go, I've got a tea bag lodged in one ear. And they'd have gone, kind of a pervert are you? Or what, you couldn't afford a donkey? Or... you know.
So what
but
did
she
she
just,
do?
no, she just didn't bat an eyelid. She just went, yes, certainly, sit on the bed. So I sat on her bed, she went and got a pair of tweezers, and she winkled this tea bag, complete with some wax, out of my lug hole, gave it to me, and said, there you are. And I said, thank you very much indeed, good night. Good night. And the next day, not a thing was said.
Right.
But that's the value of buying commercially approved BSI earplugs, as opposed to
Tea-bags.
adopt, adapt, and invent. Okay, quick reminder of our email address, which is studio@playradiouk.com. Our phone number is 01243 55 60 60, and our Skype address is play.radio.uk. It's Tommy. Fiona is here this Monday evening. It's 20 to 9 if you're live. Good day around the world, and hi if you're podcasting. This evening we have Catherine Capp. Any questions that you would like us to put to Catherine, you can do it anonymously if you like. A good way of doing that is to email. If you're listening on forums, I mean if you're listening and you're on various forums, talking amongst yourselves about what you talk about, plus what's going on the show, I'd be delighted to plug your forums if you're interested in new members. So drop us an email or Skype us with details of your forums, because we've had through to Catherine in the last 3 weeks. 2 people have been nominated by forums to go on Skype and to talk to her. So I have a feeling there are a lot of people on forums who are gagging to ask Catherine questions and talk to Catherine about what she does. Because sex is far and away the most fascinating thing I think there is in our lives. And Catherine is somebody who does it all day, every day, and is clearly a sensitive, caring, intelligent person who speaks very articulately about her specialist subject. So if there is anything that you would like to talk about, you can Skype, chat us, play.radio.uk, or email studio@playradiouk.com.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation.
Play 2 UK's talk shows are expanding. The Sunday Roast from 8 p.m, radio you won't hear anywhere else. Mondays from 8, myself, Tommy Boyd, with at 10, Catherine Catt, live from her dungeon. The Mistress on art, theatre, opera and the boudoir. Tuesdays, Steve Paul and Ali tell it like it is. Wednesday and Thursday, Mike Mendoza, gadgets, current affairs and life. And there's more to come. Check it out. Talk on Play 2 UK.
My dad knows how to keep my mum sweet. He logged on to Play Radio UK and treated her to some amazing Swarovski jewellery from the Scala Jewellery. My mum's so lucky because the Scala Jewellery designed all their jewellery in the UK and then it's handmade in Italy with Swarovski stones. They design jewellery for celebrities and royalty too. It's probably the best costume jewellery in the world. So come on all you dads, go to playradiouk.com and click on the Scala Jewellery today.
The world's favourite website creator is celebrating. Moonfruit.com has now helped over 2 million people like you make their website dreams a reality. Moonfruit's award-winning design tools let you create a professional website in simple, easy steps. And you don't need to be a web wizard to make it happen. Go to moonfruit.com right now and take a look for yourself at some fantastic websites already enjoying massive success. Packages start from less than £3 a month. Create, register, host and support your very own world-class website today with moonfruit.com.
Play 2 UK, The Tommy Boyd Show.
Let's have a word with, is it Basil who Skyped us?
Hello, yes.
Hello,
Can you hear me, Tommy?
Yeah, very well.
Oh, good. I've just, I don't know what I'm doing. I've just downloaded Skype, and I haven't got a proper headset. I'm just using a microphone and a pair of headphones.
Well, the great thing about Skype, dear boy, is that it actually sounds as though you're sat next to us in the studio, so you're doing nothing wrong. Where
that's
you?
good.
What are we calling you? Are you Basil?
Basil, that's right, yeah.
All right, and whereabouts are you Skyping from, Basil?
I'm in Bromley.
A beautiful leafy part of southeast London. Responsible for some of the great pantomimes at the Churchill Theatre, not. And responsible also for scuppering Ken Livingstone the first time he tried to introduce a congestion charge, if I remember rightly. Wasn't it the Bromley 4, or is that way before your time?
It's before, well, it probably isn't before my time, but I don't remember it.
Don't worry about it. Okay, so is this your first time of Skyping, period?
It's yeah, this is my very first time I've ever used Skype, and I've done it specially to call you.
Well, it just sounds fantastic. I'm so excited about Skype. It just beats... Hang on a second, I'm going to get rid of this caller because they're so 20th century. Retro! Retro! Hello?
Hello, Tommy.
Who's that?
It's Alan.
You're so 20th century, Alan. Get with the programme.
Well, I don't know what the topic is, because I'm not...
No, I'm talking about your technology, son. You need Skype. Listen to Basil. He's studio quality. Say hello to Alan, Basil.
Hello, is that Alan Caddick?
Yes, it is, Basil. Good evening.
Good evening. Nice to meet you.
And whereabouts in the country or in the world where you're from?
I'm in Bromley, which is South London, really.
Oh, well, you're talking to a Brummy.
No, you didn't count that.
Never mind.
Anyway, I've got a topic to run by you, Tommy.
Never mind. That's very good, Basil. Stay there, Basil. We'll just deal with a sub-quality Alan. Go on then, Alan.
I've got a topic to run by you. You know the Christmas Top 40, which is a national institution, in the last couple of years, reality TV and the X Factor, and I'm wondering what the odds of it being Christmas number one again, because I feel that Cliff Richard could do it this year.
The odds on it being the X Factor. The odds on it being the X Factor are 5-1 on.
Well, Cliff Richard is double carpet, Betty 3-1.
Yes, and John Sargent, you can get some 20s about him if you want. Alan, I suggest you do your nuts on John Sargent.
What about Bob the Builder?
Thank you for your call, Alan. You see, Basil, now how did that sound for you, listening to Alan talking to you on the phone there, Basil?
Well, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't what you call crystal clear, but I could hear what he was saying.
Yeah. So the process of Skyping, just to remind everybody, Basil, you would give it, I mean, for ease, 10 out of 10?
Yeah, and apparently it's free.
Totally.
As far as I know.
Totally. So
this is an added bonus.
It's huge, isn't it? Yeah. What have you been up to today then, Baz?
Well, I've been working today. I'm looking forward to the weekend. I'm off to Lingfield for the racing.
What's happening Saturday at Lingfield?
They've got some jump racing at Lingfield on Saturday, which is
that's
quite unusual because it's
yeah.
nearly always all-weather flat racing.
It is, yes. I had a horse that won a couple on the all-weather at Lingfield. It won a couple of times, but the trainer refused to go because he said it was beneath him.
Oh dear.
Who's jumping at Lingfield on Saturday then? Do you have any idea of the card?
No, not yet. But there's one horse of Paul Nicholls called Picture This that's supposed to be running there. So I'm looking forward to backing that one if it does.
You can't go wrong following him, can you? At the moment,
not usually. No, I followed him all the way to Sandown last Saturday and had a couple of winners.
Wait a minute. Yes. Now, Punjabi only just scraped him by the skin of his teeth.
That was a Weatherby, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, Masterminded looks all right, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He looks extremely good. He's the highest rated jumper, I think, in the country.
Yeah.
But I was a bit disappointed that his other horse, Twist Magic, who was going really well at the time, he fell. So
yeah,
it might have been a bit closer if he'd carried on going. But
I'm just going to see if I can get at the races up so that we can have a quick look at. Wait a minute. Can we get Google on this PC here?
Yeah, here we go. Look.
Darling?
Ready?
Yeah. Okay, that'll do it. All right. So is Paul Nicholls you follow, generally speaking, or is it just on Saturday's Picture This you've got in mind?
Yeah, at the moment, yeah. I mean, there's not much happening this week. I try to avoid these sort of smaller meetings because they're a bit too unpredictable for betting.
Well, I've done decently following the big trainers in the novice handicap, the novice hurdles and chases at the small courses, simply because they go there to win, to get their horses in the habit of winning. Nicky Henderson is particularly adroit at that.
He's in excellent form at the moment as well.
Yes, he is, although he went... Now, he went to Kempton about a week ago with a really strong hand and came away with nothing. I think he had 6 runners. They all looked good. They were all starting favourite or second favourite. And they all went down the Swanee. I'm just having a look, see if I can get...
Like that,
yeah. So where are we? Lingfield would be Saturday the 6th?
No.
I'm on at the races. Yeah, I'm on at the races for you, but I can't get Saturday's card up. It only goes to Friday. Never mind. You mentioned that you've been at work all day. What evil do you do, Basil?
Well, mostly landscape gardening.
That sounds like a grand summer job.
Yes, it's not quite so good this time of the year.
What were you doing today? Were you out in the outdoors?
Yeah, I'm always out in the outdoors. I'm an outdoor sort of person, really.
Right. Is it your own firm? Are you a one-man band, or do you work for somebody else?
No, I'm a one-man band.
Beautiful.
So, I'm my own boss.
Lovely. What sort of wheels have you got?
I've only got an estate car.
Okay. Because sometimes you see them, don't they? They progress to one of those rather sexy open-back truck things that David Beckham drives around. I've always wanted one of those.
Oh, I think they're just a bit too flashy for me.
They are a bit too flashy, yes, you're quite right,
I've just got simple tastes, Tommy.
And earth under your fingernails, what's left of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Basil, welcome to the fold. It's fantastic talking to you on Skype, and I'm really grateful for your call. Well done with the technology.
I'll call you again, yeah.
I want to make sure that you know that you're more than welcome any time. Anybody on Skype is halfway to being a presenter on the show. That's how I see it.
If you ever need a racing correspondent, let me know.
No, there's a thought, isn't there? There's a thought.
I could pop up with a tip for the week.
Do you fancy a tip for the week thing, then? Basil's tip... Basil's... what do we call it? We'll come up with something naff. Basil's Banker.
That's it, Basil's Banker, yeah.
Basil's Banker, and you're saying, picture this, on Saturday, at Lingfield.
Saturday, yeah, at Lingfield, yeah,
all right,
if it runs.
But here's the acid question. Nicholls trains, but who's going to ride? Will it be Tony?
I don't think Ruby Wall should be back. Yeah, well, it depends really. I suppose what other horses he's got.
Well,
it'd be probably Tony McCoy or Sam Thomas, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Thomas, they sent him across to... Where did they send him Saturday? Tony had the big ride, didn't he? And
he had 4 winners at Sandown.
They sent Sam down somewhere to ride 3 or 4 pretty good horses.
It was Chepstow, I think.
Get his confidence back. But I didn't. I found myself preoccupied. I didn't look to see whether he'd had any winners there.
All stayed on.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd had a few unlucky spills and a couple that probably were his fault, but there you are.
True. Do you ever do multiple bets, or do you like to just go race by race?
I used to do multiple bets, and I realised that I struggled to find one winner, so I just stick to that.
I think it's a clue to how difficult it is to bring a Yankee or a Hines in. The clue lies in the fact that the bookmakers leave out slips for you to do those bets.
Exactly. I think any race that's heavily advertised or that sort of thing, it's probably the races they want you to bet on.
Yes. McCririck says, if there's a bet and there isn't a slip for it in the bookies, then give it some serious thought. And he said that one of the best bets is an each-way double on quite warm favourites, because, you know, you can get them... Say you get 2 favourites at evens, running in 2 separate races, you would think, wouldn't you, that if you back them each-way double and they both came second or third, you'd hardly get your money back. But in actual fact, an each-way double on 2 even money favourites will win you your stakes back. And he said the reason that's a good bet, he said, the reason you can be sure that's a good bet is because you will never see an each-way double slip in the bookies.
That's a good point. Yeah, he's probably right there. He's a wise man.
You're very flattering, and therefore you can definitely call again, Basil. Thank you for your Skype, dear boy.
Nice to speak to you, Tommy.
Don't work too hard.
I won't. Nor you.
Always work. Hardly backbreaking, is it? What a nice man Basil is. Wasn't that a good Skype line?
Yeah. Brilliant.
It does vary, doesn't it? What do you think it varies with? Some Skypes are just a little bit tinny. Still way better than telephone lines.
It's interesting that he says that he was only using some headphones and a little mic. He said he didn't have any proper ones, but I mean, does the job, doesn't it? As you say, probably better than some we've had.
We've got a Skype from this. It says the forum unofficial Tommy Talk can be entered by adding David.J.James to contacts and following the link in the mood. Do you understand that? I don't. Fiona. It's perfectly well explained, and people who know what forumizing is won't have any difficulty. What I've said is, if you're on forums or you want to get onto forums, or you run a forum and you're quite happy to recruit new members, talking about the show as it's going out, I think it's great. Run a parallel thing like that, which we don't moderate, somebody else does, the member of the listening public. I think that's great, so I'm quite happy to promote that. And so we've got this one, the forum...
Well, you're saying to get into it, you need to add David James to your contacts first. So if you're already on Skype, you need to add him to your contacts, which is David.J.James.
Okay.
And then he's saying you have to follow the link in the mood, whatever that is. But I guess that'll be obvious once you're...
But he's written, and following the link in the, in quotation marks, mood. Nobody is barred from this chat, unlike all the other chats, unless they do something illegal.
Yeah.
Because then things get competitive, don't they?
Yes.
Our chat's better than your chat, and that's great.
Oh, yeah.
Because all human beings are competitive animals, aren't they? I am.
Oh, yeah.
Are you competitive?
Yeah.
Desperately competitive.
Yeah.
Desperately competitive. I was listening to the Sunday roast last night, and they were doing Ooh Matron.
Oh, right.
And it was who can do the longest Ooh Matron. And I think Matt did 42 seconds, which was pretty good. But on my drive here today, I was sitting in the car, and I turned the radio off and just timed myself doing Ooh Matron.
Did you?
Because I wanted to know that I can beat Matt. Isn't that pathetic? But true.
It's slightly worrying, yes.
Know thyself. Let's take a couple of emails, shall we? In our inbox.
I'll do it, shall I?
Would you? Thank you.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so, first of all, the term conspiracy theory. We're talking conspiracy theories this evening. John Lennon was murdered on this day in 1980, and two strong conspiracy theories have sprung up. They feature a lot in American talk radio shows, suggesting who might have killed Lennon other than Mark Chapman. But one of the reasons I want to talk about the conspiracies tonight is because the John Lennon murder has attached to it the most ridiculous conspiracy theory, I think, personally, I have ever heard. And it is put forward in all seriousness by a lot of people in the United States, and we'll get to that shortly. But the business of conspiracy theory, Sonny has emailed, thank you for this. The term conspiracy theory carries with it a negative connotation, when in reality, by definition, a conspiracy is simply two or more people getting together to plan something in secret. History is full of provable and acknowledged conspiracies, many involving governments. It seems the mainstream media cannot say the word conspiracy without adding the word theory afterwards, which gives the impression of an idea that cannot be proven. The truth is, there are some ridiculous theories out there, but there are also some very well-researched alternative views of history that present very compelling evidence that certain events may not have happened the way we're taught. Something like the official version of the Kennedy assassination, I think, has been proven beyond any doubt to be false. And if the evidence was presented in a court of law, I think a jury would come to the conclusion that the version as presented by the Warren Commission cannot be true. Anyone that studies history will find it littered with provable and admitted conspiracies. Who knows what will be accepted as fact in 50 to 100 years. Sonny, that's interesting that you should quote the Kennedy assassination as being almost certainly a conspiracy, and that the conclusions of the Warren Commission were almost certainly false. Because having studied it quite a lot, Sonny, myself, I'm now of the opinion that Lee Harvey Oswald did it, acting alone. Because there are bits of the conspiracy theories that Warren Commission conspiracy theorists haven't had a chance to say, well, if you think that there was somebody else besides Lee Harvey Oswald, what was Lee Harvey Oswald doing in the building? He'd worked in that building for long before it was decided that the president's motorcade would come past it.
Right.
And if he was a patsy, surely they would have found the route that the car was taking and then planted Lee Harvey Oswald in the building.
Yeah.
But if he was set up as a patsy, and some say he was set up as a patsy years before the assassination, there's a complete hole in that theory, which is that Oswald had been working at the book depository for months. He was given the job by, I think, his sister-in-law. He was estranged from his wife at the time, but she found him this sort of dead-end job at the book depository, wheeling old books around. And then some weeks later, it was decided that the motorcade would come past. Well, how could they possibly have predicted that? Now, of course, a good conspiracy theorist would say, well, what happened, you see, was that the CIA and the FBI and the Pentagon and the KGB and Castro and, just about any sort of right-wing law and order organisation you care to think about, the Ku Klux Klan, let's pitch them in there as well, shall we? And J. Edgar Hoover and the rest of them, they all decided, once they'd got Lee Harvey a job in the book depository, to reroute the motorcade past the book depository so that their patsy could be framed for the job. But that's ridiculous. And so it's not in the conspiracy theory.
So why did he shoot him?
Why did he shoot him?
Yeah.
Because he was deranged. Because he was a gun nut. Because he practiced shooting at targets 75 yards away, and he waited until the motorcade, the car carrying Kennedy, was exactly the distance from his gun that he was used to shooting. And because I think that in his psychotic state, he felt that there was something inevitable about the fact that he, a man who had already failed in an attempt to assassinate somebody else, a senator, who was in his garden about 6 weeks before the Kennedy assassination, and he felt a breeze at his neck, and then a hundredth of a second later, a bullet thudded into the ground next to him. And he realised that somebody had taken a pot shot at him.
Right.
So he went down.
Right.
Obviously. And managed to survive that.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost certain that Oswald was the man who did that.
Yeah.
Oswald was a man who wanted to shoot important people.
So he did it just for the hell of it?
Whether or not there was any kind of connection between him and the New Orleans gay mafia, which in Oliver Stone's film, and a number of the reasonably well documented conspiracy theories, it suggested that they provoked Lee Harvey Oswald, who was possibly bisexual himself, hence his involvement in this gay mafia thing. Why did he shoot him? I think because he felt that there was an inevitability about it, that the president should be put on a plate.
Right.
Driving past the building where he worked. He had his gun, he wanted to be an assassin, the president was going to drive past the window where he worked. I honestly, genuinely believe that people who think that 2 and 2 makes 5 would believe that and would do it for that reason. So, Sonny, I'm no longer somebody who believes that that there was a massive conspiracy about the murder of JFK, but thank you very much indeed for your email. studio@playradiouk.com is the email address. Once again, that's studio@playradiouk.com. We'll take some important announcements, and a reminder that Catherine Catt, our Art with Art, will be along at 10 o'clock this evening. But right on the back end of this, we'll examine the conspiracy theories that surround the murder of John Lennon, which happened on this day in the year 1980.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation.
Here she is, my sexy new MP4 player from City-Sales. The latest technology giving me music and video wherever I go, in a range of stunning colors, all for just £60. And here are her matching speakers. Gorgeous! Plus picture keyrings, audio-visual baby monitors. Oh, she's so cute. And the baby's kind of nice, too. The hottest audio-visual equipment straight to your door. Just visit City-Sales.co.uk. City-Sales. Looking good. Sounding great.
Play 2 UK is proud to announce that Catherine Catt joins our unique schedule of talk hosts. Catherine is a world-renowned lady of the night and connoisseur of literature, opera, sculpture and performance. She joins us every Monday from 10, ready to talk about affairs of the heart and the world of art, as you would never hear anywhere else. From 10, Mondays on Play 2 UK.
Broadcasting live to the UK. News, information, entertainment, and the best music from the past 40 years. This is Play 2 UK. Tommy Boyd. Call 01243 55 60 60. Email studio@playradiouk.com. Skype play.radio.uk. Now, live from the south coast of England, the Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
So John Lennon was killed, how many years ago was that then, 1980? 28?
28.
How old would you have been then?
1980? I was 9.
You were 9. I was wondering how old John Lennon would have been.
Sorry.
Yeah, can I have that?
Yes,
you
of course you
leave
can.
it alone for a second? You're a good girl.
I was going to answer your question.
Yeah, go on then.
No, I was going to look it up for you.
Oh no, that's all right. I'm trying to find a piece of audio.
Okay. Do we know when he was born?
Well, he was about 30-something, wasn't he, when he was killed?
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm just having trouble getting up a piece of what we call footage. Yeah. Which I'll get to in just a second.
What's that one there, then?
I beg your pardon?
What's that one there?
That one there doesn't seem to want... that one there, no, it doesn't seem to want to play if you click on it. We need another computer in here, don't we? Peter Collins has emailed me. Perhaps you would... shall I read this out? Because Peter Collins is somebody who can be a little bit unacceptable on occasions, it has to be said. And Peter Collins says... you don't have to talk some crap, Tommy. Anybody that knows about betting will tell you that if you have an each-way double on 2 evens, you won't get your money back. based on it will pay evens for the place when in fact you will get odds of 4 to 6 on an each-way double on 2 evens based on best place, quarter the odds. Oh yes, and before you shout at me, I worked in a bookmaking for 6 years, so I think I know what I'm on about. Okay. Which one was that, Peter, from Birmingham? I'd be very interested to know. Which... And it's not a trick question. In the morning of the day he's shot, December the 8th, 1980, John Lennon is visited by the photographer, Annie Leibovitz. In the afternoon, by a San Francisco disc jockey.
Like being a politician, you know, and what I really got through this 5 years is I'm not running for office. I like to be liked. I don't like to offend people. I would like to be a happy, contented person. I don't want to have to sell my soul again, as it were, to have a hit record. I've discovered that I can live without it, and it makes it happier for me, but I'm not going to come back in and try and create a persona.
And he and Yoko leave by their limo to go to the Record Plant Studios around about 5 in the afternoon. There's a small crowd, as there usually was, outside the Dakota building, and Lennon pauses to sign a few autographs, including signing Mark Chapman's copy of Double Fantasy. Chapman accepts the signature. Lennon apparently asks him, "Is that all you want?" He says yes. They go to the studio to mix down a track called Walking on Thin Ice.
Walking on thin ice, I'm paying the price for throwing that dice.
And get back at about 10 to 11 in the evening. Quite early considering, except Lennon wanted to be there when his son Sean went to bed. Yoko Ono leaves the limo first and walks several yards ahead of Lennon through the archway, next to which is a small sentry box used by the doorman, towards the 6 steps leading up to the reception area, which takes you up to the apartments. She gets there as Lennon walks past a figure lurking in the shadows, who allows Lennon past without a word. According to some reports, several steps after Lennon has walked past the figure, who is Chapman, Chapman steps out and says, "Mr. Lennon." John may or may not have half-turned, Mr. Lennon. But then Chapman begins firing. 5 shots, 4 of which hit Lennon on the left side of his back. Lennon staggers up the 6 steps to the reception area, and his last words were, to Yoko, "I'm shot." Still semi-conscious when the ambulance arrived, Lennon was vomiting blood and fleshy material, and he passed away in the ambulance, which arrived at the hospital at 11:07. What happened in the moments after the shooting by the archway is reasonably well documented, but has somehow passed into folklore. The doorman emerged from his box and said to the young man with the gun, "Do you know what you've just done?" The man, Chapman, is said to have replied, "I've just shot John Lennon." Whereupon he pulled out a copy of a book called The Catcher in the Rye by Salinger and started absently thumbing through it. And he was looking at the book when the police arrived. In the time that passes between the arrival of the police and the imprisonment of Chapman for Lennon's murder, a number of questions are asked and not answered, the result of which is that 4 or 5 shaky conspiracy theories surrounding the murder of Lennon are still being talked about today. The first question is asked by the police when they arrive. They query the allegation that Chapman is the gunman. As they say, he doesn't look like one, and he hasn't run away. Sometime later, the courts ask, for many people, too few questions, and judge that Chapman acted alone and shot Lennon, apparently in a bid for fame. But Chapman's words on arrest, that he felt nothing and had an empty mind, alerted British legal expert Fenton Bresler to conspiracy theory number 1, that Chapman was a Manchurian candidate, someone brainwashed and primed to kill on command. For this conspiracy theory, Chapman's apparent mental state, and the fact that he did some charity work abroad some years before the murder in an unlikely place, Beirut, a place crawling with the CIA. Against the Manchurian candidate theory, if he'd been set up to kill, he'd surely have been programmed to either kill himself or run back to his puppeteers to be disposed of. Far too dangerous for him to fall into the arms of the law, which in fact, of course, he did. Conspiracy theory number 2, the doorman did it. For this theory, he was a former CIA operative who had been in on the Bay of Pigs attempt to overthrow Castro. No stranger to guns and no stranger to covert ops, his identity was supposed to have been kept secret for 6 years after Lennon's murder. Also, the bullets that hit Lennon hit him in the left-hand side of his back, which is exactly the spot they would have entered if the shots had come from the doorman's booth. Against. No proof whatsoever that he is the man who was a former CIA operative. If he were, though, his only possible motive would have been political. And although Lennon was certainly a thorn in the side of the American right, the incoming President Reagan was far too media-savvy himself to consider Lennon a threat. As to the direction of the bullets, surely John Lennon was the kind of man who would have turned if he'd heard his name politely uttered. So maybe he was turning to the left, and hence the entry wounds. Do you know what sticks with me after doing all that research into that and coming up with that?
What's that?
Is that, you know, like you've had an argument in the car on the way home?
Yeah.
If you haven't, you get out together, don't you? And you walk up the garden path together.
Yeah.
Don't you? Generally.
Yeah.
But if you had a bit of a ding-dong, then whoever's nearest the door will march to the door and go in by themselves, leaving the other one to come in a bit later. That's how it goes, isn't it? And when they got back to the apartment, I think what happened was that Lennon said, look, we're going back. And because it was Yoko's song that they were mixing, Walking on Thin Ice, I think that they'd had an argument, possibly because she wanted to stay a bit longer.
Yeah.
But Lennon said, no, I want to get back and kiss Sean goodnight. And she said, no, I want to stay. And he said, I was going to... And so when they got back there, the car pulled up outside the building. Do you know, it could have driven in.
Really?
And if it had driven all the way in, because there was this archway, which was wide enough for a Rolls Royce. I think his car was a white Rolls Royce, driven by his regular driver. That could have driven all the way through the arch and into a little courtyard.
Right.
But I don't think they could be asked with that, because it was a bit of a tight squeeze or something. So the car dropped them off on the pavement, the sidewalk, as the Americans call it, outside the archway. And I think that Yoko was on the side of the car that was nearest the archway, so she just got out, closed the door, and marched past the archway, because she'd already got the length of this little sort of alleyway, which was about 10 feet wide, and turned and gone up the steps into the reception area, because it's like an alcove with a lift in it, I guess.
Right.
And he must have got out the other side, and maybe had had a quick word with the driver, who he knew. I think his name was Joe. And then the car drives off, and Lennon goes round, and so he's a good 15 or 20 seconds. Well, how long? She goes past. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. He gets out his side. Oh, I suppose about 8 or 9 seconds. He's about 8 or 9 seconds behind her. But if you're a couple, and you go into the house that way, don't you think there's usually a tension? Some kind of tension?
Possibly, yeah.
And this is the thing, you see. You know, like you have an argument with your other half, and they go off to work, or you go off to work, or one of you goes to the shops, or something. You know, there's always that awful thing that something might happen to them, and the last time you ever talked...
was an argument.
It was an argument.
Yeah.
It was a bloody argument. And I've got nothing to go on at all except those small bare facts. But that's the one thing that stands out to me from doing that research, that maybe they'd had an argument and she stormed in, you know, maybe.
Yeah.
And he's sort of dawdling, because he got his way, but, you know, he's dawdling a bit. And then he gets himself bloody shot. Anyway, do you want to know the most ridiculous conspiracy theory, which is genuinely held by quite a few people, almost entirely Americans?
Go on.
There is a genuinely held belief that the killer was not Mark Chapman.
Right.
That it was not the doorman.
Right.
That it was the horror novelist Stephen King.
Why?
Because in one of the photographs of Mark Chapman, he looks remarkably similar to Stephen King. That's the beginnings of it.
Right.
And then, almost to demonstrate how easy it is to come up with a ludicrous conspiracy theory, if you want to, these theorists have then gone on to establish that King had no alibi on the night of the murder.
Oh, for goodness sake.
And I'm not even going to mention the conspiracy theories, that's the theory that says that Paul McCartney did it.
I've heard that one.
Not even going to mention it. Ludicrous. But as with so many of these things, you see, the wise man said it's most likely, the most likely explanation. And the most likely explanation is that Mark Chapman was a very, very unbalanced. Even though he looked extremely normal. Have you seen pictures of him?
No.
He looks like anybody's physics teacher.
Right.
He's got quite a nice haircut. He's got quite a nice jumper on. Jumper. Where's a jumper? A jumper to kill John Lennon. Not, you know, he's not a mess.
No.
You really could imagine him at a PTA meeting. He's got those nice glasses that he wears. Spectacles. Not strange ones. Not dark glasses.
Is he in prison?
He's still in prison.
Right.
And the police, when they arrived, they said, well, you can't be serious. Look, he's still here. He's standing here. Nobody's holding him. He's standing here. How often does that happen?
Still have the gun, though?
I guess. But that worries me a little bit, because why didn't the doorman the doorman is 60-something. Chapman is a young man. You know, you're standing there next to a man who has just fired 5 shots and hit a guy in the back. What do you do at 60-something? Because you couldn't have wrestled him to the ground, I suppose. So what did they talk about? How long did it take the police to arrive? It's got to take 5 minutes.
Well, I don't think you'd stand and make small talk. I think you would either run for cover yourself or attempt to, depending on where you were.
Yeah, we're talking about the John Lennon murder and the conspiracy theories that inevitably spring up about these. I think David has emailed. I think that if the conspiracy theory is brilliant, it was written by someone like me, dyslexic. The only thing is he confused Lennon with Lenin. Personally, I would prefer the one that says it was Yoko that set it all up, because John had decided to come back to the UK. This is why he had written, it is like starting over. Come on, Chapman was a nutter, bastard. Yes, he was a nutter. It's probably as simple as that. And Paul says, you should speak to Karen Douglas, head of psychology at Kent University. She's contributed to an article in this month's Focus magazine about conspiracies and their attractions to the masses. That's interesting. Should we make a note of that?
Yeah.
Should we do that when you come back from your holiday?
Yes.
Peter Collins has said, I worked in Ted Shepherd's Bookmakers in Rookery Road, Handsworth in Birmingham for 6 years, duty, including settling bets and board marking. Dare question me on my past. Don't question your past, Peter. Steady, son. I just asked which bookie you'd worked in, mate. Because the one that I used was the big Ladbrokes, right in the middle of town, okay? He says, and by the way, John Lennon was 40 when he got killed, not in his early 30s. So, Tommy, it helps to do some research before you make ill-informed comments. Okay, what's the matter with this guy? What on earth is going on here? No, I expect to get banned from your show. No, but we can't be cosy liberals, can we, Peter from Birmingham?
Oh, dear.
Yes, Peter, it may surprise you, but the age at which Lennon was shot is not central to the episode. Okay? You know, his blood group is more significant, frankly, than his age, Peter. So it's a matter of knowing what's important from what isn't, Peter. Bless your cotton socks. And yes, an each way double at evens gets you your money back, Peter. You obviously were working probably in your head. Well, they use calculators now, mate. And so should you have done. Nice emails coming in. Thank you very much indeed for that. We're about half an hour away from Catherine Catt. Our email address is studio@playradiouk.com, Skype play.radio.uk, switchboard number 01243 55 60 60. Talking about John Lennon and his death on this day in 1980, the conspiracy theories that have sprung up there. And we're talking about conspiracy theories in general, since pretty much all of them extremely interesting, although we may not get to the possibility that the Queen is a lizard this year. It's just gone 9:20. Good evening.
Play 2 UK headlines.
One of the officials at the centre of the Baby P child abuse case has been dismissed with immediate effect. Sharon Shoesmith, who was head of children's services at Haringey Council in London, had already been suspended on full pay. But a panel of councillors has decided she'll receive no compensation. The toddler died after months of abuse, despite being on the authorities' at-risk register. A Frenchman's been jailed for life for trying to kill schoolgirl Jessica Knight. The 14-year-old was walking through a park at Chorley in Lancashire, listening to her iPod when she was stabbed 20 times. Police are dealing with what they describe as a disturbance at a young offenders prison in Aylesbury. Officers were called to the incident this morning and quickly cordoned off the site in Buckinghamshire. Security at Stansted Airport is under urgent review after environmental campaigners broke in. More than 50 flights were cancelled when they blocked the runway. Police have made 57 arrests. And today's been dubbed Mega Monday for online Christmas presents. More than 2 million are expected to have been bought over the net.
Play 2 UK weather.
Rain affecting southern areas of England and Wales will spread steadily south-eastwards, clearing the far south-east around dawn. Otherwise dry and clear with frost forming inland, but with scattered showers on western coasts and hills, these wintry over northern hills. Looking on to tomorrow, many areas dry and sunny but cold. Some showers on western coasts and hills, these wintry over northern hills. Feeling cold in the northwesterly breeze.
You're up to date on Play 2 UK. PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation.
Here you are, sweetheart. Merry Christmas.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mum. Great. A yak wool jumper. You really shouldn't have. You really shouldn't have. I wish you hadn't. It's the same every year. I wish you'd just go to Universal Posters. They have a fantastic range of approved pictures of some of my favourite celebrities, all digitally signed in their own handwriting. Mum could even have got one personalised just for me. Prices start from $7.99, so don't let your loved ones down this Christmas. Just go to playradiouk.com and click on the Universal Poster banner.
Are you going to give me a hand out in the kitchen then?
Yes, Mum, I'll help you stuff the turkey in a minute. Yeah, with this jumper.
Right then, what was the web address?
passiononline.co.uk.
Oh, you would look really sexy in that. Okay, that's in the shopping cart.
Imagine the fun we could have with them.
Yeah. Okay, I've ordered something for you. Something for us. How about this for me?
PassionOnline.co.uk has something for everybody, with a fast, discreet delivery service, competitive pricing, and a free gift with every order for a limited time. See our massive product mix online right now. Click PassionOnline.co.uk, the world's sexiest online shop.
Hey folks, want to win a brand new iPod Touch? That's right, I said brand new iPod Touch. Give yourself a chance of winning a brand new iPod Touch with something.info. You could win a brand new iPod Touch just for signing up. Join the community at something.info. Get content straight to your mobile phone and win a brand new iPod Touch. www.something.info.
Ah, that's better. For dating, chat and content straight to your mobile, then sign up at something.info and you'll have the chance to win an iPod Touch. Sign up now and experience something different.
Tommy Boyd on Play 2 UK, the original cunning linguist.
Okay, we've got a couple of forums to plug where people they've got the show on and they're talking amongst themselves, which is, I think, a good way of doing it. Why not? I've got a Skype chat through, Fiona. Shall I just read this?
Yes, go
Okay,
for it.
this is a chat room for Play Radio UK's talk radio audience and is open to all talk genre radio fans to talk about the topics that can interest that community. There are no banned persons or topics other than the limits of free speech imposed by law. Unlike other talk genre radio chat rooms which cannot handle either criticisms nor experimental Skype chatting, there's no banning of people on this chat and then continuing to talk about them in their absence. Yeah, you do get a bit of that, don't you?
Yeah.
There's a lot of there can be a lot of cattiness. I think it's going to get better, but I would never want the edge to go from. I would never want the internet to go as cosy and yet at the same time somehow distant and unreal as a lot of conventional radio. A lot of conventional radio. So far removed from what we're really like as people.
Yeah.
Because those that are in charge of it don't trust ordinary people and think that they need to be somehow controlled a little bit.
Just out of interest, did you see the Comedy Awards the other night?
I did.
Yeah. I thought it was quite interesting, Russell Brand getting the award.
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
Good for him that he got that little comment in about Jonathan Ross.
I thought Ricky Gervais in bed with George Michael was funny. That was truly ridiculously funny, wasn't it? I mean, it must have worked backwards because what happened was Gervais found out that George Michael was around and he was doing his thing, so he said, well, in that case then I want to be in bed with him. Okay, quick, get Ricky a bed. Got him a bed, and now how are they going to do it? How are they going to make it work? How's he going to work the fact that George Michael is going to be in his acceptance speech and that he's in bed with him?
Yeah.
Yes. It was funny.
Yeah.
He's a genius, isn't he?
He is a genius.
He's up there with Chaplin and Peter Sellers, isn't he?
Yeah.
Anyway, so this chat room is called Unofficial Tommy Talk. Is that the address?
Well, yes, I guess it must be.
I believe there is an age condition. This Unofficial Tommy Talk Skype chat, I don't know how to plug the address for this forum, but they say this is a community of adult radio listeners under 16s ought not be joining this chat. Please do not add people against their will more than once per show. Eh? I don't get that. Surely you shouldn't add people against their will at all. Anyway, people are free to do what they want. This is the internet.
Well, no, I think you can invite people. Well, you can, I mean, like, we've been sort of added to this.
All right.
So we can choose to leave that if we want to.
All right.
Or we can just keep on
looking.
Okay.
Fine. Good. So keep up the good work. That one. This one. Somebody who is anonymous, but who sends in emails on yellow background paper and in dark blue italic-y sort of writing says, is there any point asking why you don't read my emails out anymore? I'll read out a previous one, which goes, I know you won't read this out, but know thyself is Aristotle or Plato or someone, isn't it, or Descartes or someone of that ilk. It's not in the Bible. It is. It's somewhere in the Bible. I couldn't tell you where. But it's definitely in the Bible that you should know yourself. Somewhere. Anyway, the emailer goes on, if you think it is, I challenge you to find it. I can't be bothered. It's really easy. You don't need to trawl through the Bible. Just go to Bible Gateway and enter Know Thyself and see what it returns. No. No, I won't. But it's probably the most universal piece of wisdom that almost certainly finds itself nestling not only in the Bible, but I would think in the Quran, and in what little Buddha had to say. He only wrote 12 things, Buddha, not an awful lot. But he spent a long time thinking up what they were, so that lets him out of having to have an enormous book for Buddhists to thump each other with. And I'm sure that Hinduism and Sikhism and Confucianism and Taoism and Shinto and probably even good old Khalil Gibran, probably even Satanism, contains the notion that you should know yourself. And it's a great idea, because what it means is understand yourself and why, the real reason why you're saying what you're saying, and the real reason why you think what you think, and the real reason why you're doing what you're doing. Okay? Because so many of the shitbags on this planet who really screw up everybody else's lives first and then their own are the people who believe that what they're doing is for everybody else's good and born of the highest possible motives, when in actual fact it's in all probability the same mishmash of largely selfish reasons and motives that those who know thyself, know themselves, are aware of, and because they're aware of who they are and why they do what they do and why they think what they think, are on the whole just a little bit nicer, a little bit kinder, and certainly a good deal more honest. So if there is a God, and you can't say there isn't, but most likely God is that little bit in many of us, if only if it was most of us. God only knows what a wonderful heaven on earth this would be if it was all of us. God is that little bit of self-awareness. Honest self-awareness. I'll shut up now. Thank you for your emails on the subject. This emailer then emails back, "Fine, sweetie, be happy in your ignorance and happy peddling it." There's somebody who doesn't know themselves. Here's Harry, who's emailed in. Thank you, Harry. Harry says, "I've recently found you on this internet station. I used to listen to you on Talk Radio. I heard you play the audio about the royal family. What got you sacked? Do you recall a chat years ago when you got a homophobic guy on? As I recall, you kept him on for quite a while. And as I remember, he called back another day. Did I dream this? If I didn't, do you have any audio of these calls?" I'm afraid I don't, Harry. I've never really been one for keeping bits of stuff that are in the past. I'm just marginally more interested always in the future. But thank you for your recalls. He goes on to say, "I must say I enjoy the talk on this station, Mendoza and the Sunday Roast. The freedom on here is so refreshing. I just can't abide commercial talk stations anymore. They seem to fill most of the time with inane trailers of their own station, plus the adverts and crap signature music. In some hours, I think hardly any callers are actually on the air. I appreciate on Play Radio you have important announcements, but they seem less of a distraction on here." Harry goes on with a bit of background. "I'm 57, he says, and like to listen to your podcasts in the car as a substitute to broadcast radio. I know, he says, this may seem like a bum-licking email, but it isn't. It's just a few of my thoughts. I have to add also that I listen to Radio 5 live as well if I've already listened to the podcasts. I can't always listen live, but I am tonight. The death of Lennon was a tragic event. I believe he was just shot by Chapman, a loony, sadly." Harry finishes by saying, "The Skype calls are very clear. I'll try a call on Skype one day, but feel I'll make a prat of myself." I know what it's like, Harry. You put off, don't you, getting in touch with a phone-in radio event over and over. I've done it a couple of times myself, and I have to say that actually hosting this kind of radio is a lot less nerve-wracking than calling in. So maximum respect to everybody who calls in for having the balls to do it the first time, because it does take a lot of thought and, oh my God, come on, let's just do it then. And then you dial 3/4 of the number, or you Skype 3/4 of the address, and then you think to yourself, no, I'll just leave it, maybe do it tomorrow or a bit later on. You do that loads of times, and then in the end you do it the first time, and you have the conversation, and almost certainly put the phone down or log off Skype or whatever and think to yourself, I made such a fool of myself. But the point is you've done it, and that's better than anything that you've done, virtually, apart from shooting John Lennon. Anything that you've done has to be better for you, doesn't it, than those things you have yet to do, but hope to do. You might feel you're determined to do. You might feel you're destined to do them. Well, do them, for God's sake. We're here for such a short amount of time. Do them. Studio at playradiouk.com is our email address. Skype is play.radio.uk. And a reminder, our switchboard number is 01243 55 60 60. Tonight might be the night that you finally put a question to Catherine Catt, our lovely professional sex worker and often spokesperson for the many, mainly women, but I imagine also men who work in the sex industry, and herself something of a connoisseur and aficionado of the arts. So we talked to Catherine a little bit about what she's been to see, been listening to, been watching in the world of art on her Monday slot, and we also talked to her a little as well about what amounts to her day job. She has her own dungeon, fully equipped, and she has a select list, I think it's probably accurate to say, of favoured clients. The most frequently asked question to Catherine so far, over the last few weeks that she's been with us, is how much? Or, as it's been put, usually by a representative of one of the forums who's been asked to Skype in and ask Catherine the question, what is your tariff? And she expertly and quite understandably, just as most people don't like to discuss how much they earn, quite expertly manages to sidestep the subject. But if there is a question, either about Catherine's work, or about art, or about sex in general, that you've always wanted to either discuss with somebody who knows what they're talking about, or just put to Catherine anonymously, I don't mind that, as long as you specify in your email. It's studio@playradiouk.com.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation.
Play2 UK is proud to announce that Catherine Catt joins our unique schedule of talk hosts. Catherine is a world-renowned lady of the night and connoisseur of literature, opera, sculpture and performance. She joins us every Monday from 10, ready to talk about affairs of the heart and the world of art, as you would never hear anywhere else. From 10, Mondays on Play2 UK.
Building your very own world-class website couldn't be easier with Moonfruit.com's award-winning design tools. With over 4,000 fully customizable templates, Moonfruit.com's easy drag-and-drop system gets you going straight away. Plus, Moonfruit.com offers you a fantastic subscription service that includes e-commerce tools and Google AdSense, helping you to quickly make money from your website. See for yourself. Click Moonfruit.com. Create, register, host, and support your very own world-class website today with Moonfruit.com.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch a podcast by its toe. If it squeals, let it go. Then pop to playradiouk.com/podcast and download another show. playradiouk.com/podcast. It's like going to a library without actually having to go.
Tommy Boyd on Play2 UK, a super song of sanctity in a weird and wacky world.
A weird and wacky world. It's not that wacky, I think. We're actually probably more sensible than most, but 01243 55 60 60 is the switchboard number. I'll reprise that again in just a second. It's good evening to Richard, who's called in. Hello, Richard.
Oh, good evening, Tommy.
Sir.
Hello, how are you, all right?
Very well. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thanks. This is the first time I've listened to your show tonight.
Excellent.
Yeah. You know that gentleman emailed in, Harry, I think his name was, yeah? Said that he used to listen to you on, what was it, Talk Radio?
He did.
Well, I can remember listening to you on BBC Radio 5 before it became BBC Radio 5 Live.
Well, now that's going back a bit. Well done.
I know, when you used to do the half-term children's programmes called Take 5.
Bloody hell.
I remember the...
I'd forgotten that.
I remember the jingle as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, take 5.
Do you remember the opening morning of Radio 5? No.
I don't, unfortunately. I've heard something about it. Have you got the audio for it, please, or no?
No, I haven't. It's just that besides being at LBC when they started, and at Radio 5 when they started, and also at Talk Radio when they started, I have very a clear but at the same time confused memory of the first show of Radio 5, because I did a children's programme that went on the air at 9 o'clock in the morning.
The afternoon one, yeah.
And they didn't have delay.
Oh?
And I said to them, that's dangerous, and they said, don't worry about it, we're the BBC.
Yeah?
And the second call that I took was from a teenage boy who told a joke, and I can't remember how the joke went, but it had to do with Margaret Thatcher and a chicken's arse.
Oh, yeah?
But I can't remember the gag.
I can't remember it either, but I think I remember briefly, I was told anyway, how Radio 5 opened. You had all these children from a primary school shouting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
And then one young girl, I think about 9 or 10, goes, good morning and welcome to Radio 5. And then Bruno Brooks from Radio 1 popped in.
Now, I don't remember that. But then again, I was getting ready for my programme, which was the second programme on.
Basically, Take 5 was on the first day, I was told, but Bruno Brooks did it that day, and his special guest was Paul Gascoigne.
Well, I seem to remember it was me, and I'll tell you why I remember being on air on the opening day of Radio 5, is because I looked up just as we went on air, and we had this massive gallery, which was like a technical area, and it was absolutely full of BBC executives.
My word, yeah.
From the head of radio down, and there's a lot of executives at the BBC. There are about 15 or 20 of them, all stood there in their suits and ties, just staring at me, who is trying to sort of communicate with children. And when you're being stared at by a bunch of serious-looking adults, it just throws you a little bit if you're saying things to children. Do you know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
Puts the wrong sort of image in your mind.
It does.
Well, you've got a very good memory, young Richard.
Yes, I got to be honest. I used to listen to Radio 5 nearly all the time. I mean, I can remember there was such a variety on there, wasn't there?
On 5, yeah. Well, it was a bit of a schizophrenic. It was a bit of a sort of a jam and ham sandwich, really, because it tried to be half sport and half children.
Yeah.
And those two things are so sort of rather polarised that one was going to either, you know, that one of those two strands was going to knock the other one into touch.
Do you think that's why 5 Live shut down?
Well, I think what happened was Radio 5 recognised that they had to just refine things a little bit, and they decided to go with sport and current affairs as opposed to sport and children's programmes.
I see. Because I got to be honest, even at 11 years old, I mean, I was excited about it, but even at 11 years old, I was a little bit surprised when I heard the format. I was thinking, hang on a second, education, sport, pop music and children, my word.
Yeah.
It don't work.
No, it didn't, did it?
No, and the problem was, a lot of people were complaining because, I mean, with hindsight, listening back to some tapes that my friends had of Radio 5, I mean, it sounds like a second Radio 1, really.
Yeah, you could say. I have to say, Richard, you don't by any chance work in radio, do you? Because you obviously love it and think about it an awful lot.
I do, to be honest.
Do you? Who do you work for?
GTFM.
Tell me a bit about that lot.
Basically, it's a local station for South Wales.
Okay.
And it serves the Pontypridd area.
And what do you do?
A love songs programme.
A love songs programme?
Oh, yeah.
Outstanding. Can I play you a couple of... how recently have you been listening to Play Radio, Richard?
Only since Friday.
Since Friday. Okay. We're allowed to play things on this station that you wouldn't hear anywhere else.
Oh, yeah.
So this will make you laugh. This is a disc jockey. I think it's on Radio Leicester.
Oh, yeah?
And somebody sent him a request. And it's one of those spoof requests, but he doesn't realise that, so he reads it out as if it's real.
Okay, then.
You ready?
Yeah.
OK, let's get to our first dedication. Dear Chris, please say a big hello to Connie Lingers, who's 69 on Tuesday. She'll be enjoying my meat and 2 veg on Sunday at 12, which are all the very best, and tell her I look forward to seeing her when she comes. Thanks ever so much, says Ivan R. Don. And he says, please say hello to Bill as well. And that comes from Ivan going out to Connie in Thurnby Lodge here in Leicestershire.
I suppose you wouldn't be able to play that on your radio station, would you?
No, I wouldn't.
No, you'd like to, though, wouldn't you?
Oh, I would.
You would. Yes.
But,
Go on.
I also have done stuff for, another station. It's another internet station, to be honest.
Oh, well, who's that?
Golden Radio International.
Golden Radio International?
That's the one.
Okay, where's that? What's that broadcast?
It's a nostalgic station, basically, and it's to kind of keep the pirate radio days alive, you know, Radio Caroline and what have you.
Okay. What have I... would you be able to play stuff like this? You said, would you like to? This is a bloke called Alan Jones.
Okay.
Alan Jones is a hard-nosed breakfast show host in Australia.
All right.
But sometimes, when he's in the recording studio, he lets rip.
Oh.
Here we go. Ready?
All right.
I'm a commentator par excellence.
Hack presents
I am the best.
the closet recordings of Alan Jones.
I'm the Muhammad Ali of 2UE.
Find out why so many people are choosing the comfort of a waterbed from Water Brothers. Remember the name, Water Brothers Waterbeds. Getting a good night's sleep. You're having a fuck on a rolling bed. That's what it's about. Almighty. How do they do it? Let's go. 3198957. Who wrote that fucking script?
And if that doesn't bore people, you can tell Rob Kinney when you get it to him. I said, if that doesn't bore people witless, nothing will. Whoever wrote that ought to be given a hot knife. Preferably across the lower part of the throat. Dreadful.
Written and spoken by Alan Jones for the amusement of the Triple J audience.
Good stuff, isn't it, Richard?
Oh, it is, yeah.
Why can't we broadcast like that, mate? Why won't they let us after 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock? Why won't they just let us say, you know, what's on our mind?
Oh, I agree. So have you got any jingles there or no?
Have I got any jingles?
Oh, yeah, because I like them.
You like jingles, do you?
Oh, I do.
Well, this isn't really a jingle.
I'd be most grateful for the return of the blade. Now clear up them there shambles, or I'll feed you piecemeal to the rats in the cellar. Belay your swivel tongue, Purity. It were only befitting to watch over ye as any gentleman would.
Not really a jingle, is it, Richard?
No.
What are your favourite jingles, then? Because you've done very well to remember some of the jingles from my time on Radio 5, which I'd forgotten myself. Carry on.
I tell you what my favourite ones are.
Yes.
The ones off Radio 1 in the 80s.
Yes, I can remember a few of those. Go on, you go first.
Across the UK, for you and me, Britain's favourite Radio 1.
That's pretty good, yeah. I remember, although it doesn't take a lot of remembering, Wonderful Radio 1.
Oh, it's back in the 60s, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Ooh, Gary Davies.
What? Go into that one.
Wasn't that? Ooh, Gary Davies.
Who's that with you?
Ooh,
This is
Gary
Fiona,
Davies.
Richard. Richard, say hello to Fiona. Fiona, this is Richard.
Oh, hello, Fiona.
Hello.
Hello, how are you, all right?
I'm very well, thank you.
Oh, good, I'm glad. Did you listen to Radio 1 in the 80s then, or no?
I did. It was Gary Davies, wasn't it?
That's the one, yeah.
Yes.
I went to a road show of his once.
That was nice for you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What other ones were there?
Dave Lee Travis.
Yeah, the jingles, though. Can you remember how the jingles went?
I never liked Dave Lee Travis. Nothing against him. I never liked him because Noel Edmonds used to do Breakfast on Radio 1 and he used to do some really good prank calls.
He did?
And I enjoyed them.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony Blackburn used to be on before him, and Tony Blackburn was a very good disc jockey.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. But Dave Lee Travis neither did prank calls, nor was he a very good disc jockey. So I didn't like Dave Lee Travis.
It was the beard, was it?
A lot of people didn't like him, to be honest. A lot of people thought that he was moralistic.
Moralistic?
And a little bit old-fashioned.
Old-fashioned. There wasn't much to his act, that was all.
No. I mean, I liked him. I mean, I grew up with him, see?
And I like the Air tune.
Or Simon Bates.
I got a bit fed up with that in the end, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
It did go on for too long, to be honest.
It did, because you knew where it was going, didn't you, really? There were occasional ones that made you stop and think, but I think you should have reduced it to once a week.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, the trouble was, you see, I mean, it was so predictable. You knew what you were going to get. And,
yes.
You know, the stories, the doctor came and the baby died and all that kind of thing.
Yes. I guess it was a bit like an early sort of Jeremy Kyle, wasn't it, really?
Yeah.
Airing your dirty linen in public.
Oh, no. Jeremy Kyle used to be on Virgin, didn't he?
Did he?
Yes, he did, yes.
Jezza's Virgin Confessions.
Yes. And so did, what's his name, the bloke who just does hypnotism now?
Paul McKenna.
You're good, Richard. You're very good. We better get a mastermind type radio quiz for you. Let's see where I can catch you out, shall we? You ready?
Okay, then.
All right, here we go. Come on, radio questions. We'll catch Richard out. Come on. Anybody listening? Anybody, email an utterly obscure radio question. Well, Richard, do you want to strand on this station? I quite like this.
Sorry?
Radio Obscurata.
Oh, that'd be good.
What shall we call you? Richard, you don't own an anorak.
What was...
I might do.
So what were the... This is
Here we
very
go.
obscure.
Here we go. Come on.
This is very obscure, but
Come on.
will be a second question. So, recite me the opening line, then, just before the launch of Radio 1.
10 seconds to go before Radio 1 Tony Blackburn and Radio 2 Paul Hollingdale. 5, 4, 3, get tuned to Radio 1 or 2, Radio 2, Radio 1, go.
Bloody hell.
Excellent, well done.
What was Tony Blackburn's dog called?
Arnold.
Bloody hellfire.
And who was the voice that did those words?
The voice who did the opening announcement before the first jingle, yeah?
Yes.
Robin Scott.
Okay.
Really? You sure?
What?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What did the little boy, whose name they never found out, whose identity was never uncovered, but nevertheless became an integral part of Ed Stewpot Stewart's Junior Choice every Saturday morning, say?
Hello, darling.
Bloody hellfire. This guy's good. Come on. We've got to get him.
I don't think it was Robin Scott, though. I think you got that wrong.
What?
I thought it was Paul Hollingdale, wasn't it?
Paul Hollingdale was on Radio 2.
Paul Hollingdale came on after, see. I mean,
Did
Robin
he?
Scott was the controller of Radio 1, so he kind of had the opening speech, see.
What was the wavelength of Radio 1?
The first one,
Yes.
it was, what's it now, 247,
It was 247. And what did it move to?
275
Yes, it
and
did.
285.
Yes, it did. And why was that?
Why was that?
Why the wavelength change?
I'm not exactly sure, I'm afraid.
Well, don't go Googling it whilst I'm talking to you. That's
I can hear
cheating.
you tapping.
We can do that. A lot of people do that. They think that they're tapping away on the old keyboard. No, the story is that a BBC executive went to a European wavelength conference, right? And his job was to keep 247 for Radio 1, right? And the story, and I'm sure it's apocryphal, but the story is that he got pissed. Right?
Oh, dear.
And forgot to put his hand up when they said in Belgium, does anybody want 247?
Oh.
Right? And he woke up with a hangover in his hotel room the next morning and discovered that Radio 1 was now 265 and whatever it was, 275 and 285. I'd like to believe that story.
Oh, by the way, do you remember the Human Zoo that you did on TalkSport?
I do.
I phoned into that.
You did?
I did.
What did you do?
Basically, I played a clip of a band that I was a part of in... Because I used to be a student, you see, in England, in Hereford.
Right. Just stay with us a second, Richard. I've got I think I've got a call coming in. Somebody wants to ask you a question. If that's so, then we'll have that question put to you. But because we're not investing heavily in old technology here, our phones can only run one at a time. So, Fiona,
Hello, you still there, please?
Yeah, you stay there.
I don't want to be rude, but I'm going to let you go now if that's all right, because I'm a bit tired, but I'll phone back some other night if you like.
No, I'll be fine. Thank you for that. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye. What a nice man. I wasn't sure at first whether he was a spoof. Do you think he was a spoof? What do you think, Caller? Was that a spoof?
Mickey Macky More More More.
Mickey Macky More More More?
Licky Dacky Do, Licky Dacky Do.
Nicky Dacky Doo? Nickety Nackety. What?
Licky Da Bibda.
Halaka.
Me Kaka Tutu.
Olan Bato.
Me Bean and me Big One.
Mimi Doodle Popeye Ginger.
Me Kakaboogie.
The very similitude is blowing from the south.
Split 5, variable 6, windy.
So, answers on a postcard, please. Was he real or not?
I'm not sure.
Let me just take a couple of... Stephen L. has Skyped in. He is on crack. I think he means that last caller is on crack. Ty Showers emails, what is your process for submitting music for play considerations? Do you accept high-quality MP3s? Ty. Yes, Ty, we accept high-quality MP3s, low-quality MP3s, scratchy budget-quality MP3s.
And anything goes.
Yes, you can shout into a tin can, seal it up with sellotape, and send it in the post to Imperium House, Ford Lane, Yapton, West Sussex, England, Britain, Europe, the world, the solar system, the galaxy, the Milky Way, the universe. Did you used to write that in the back of your exercise books when you were little?
Yeah.
And did it make you realise you were insignificant?
I'm not insignificant.
We are. We
No,
are.
I'm just
appallingly
teasing. Yes, I
know
know
you are.
we are.
I know. So why then are we so serious? Why do we take
don't
everything so bloody
I don't
serious? I'll just take a couple more quick emails and then we'll look ahead to right after some important announcements at what we call the top of the hour in broadcasting, but nobody else does, do they?
No.
It's only people in broadcasting who are at the top of the hour. It's actually enshrined in the audio that comes spilling from our technology here. It's the top of the hour. I think it's top of the hour.
Yes.
Have you ever said that?
I thought it said top of the pops.
You said, I'll see you outside the cinema, darling. Oh, what time will you be there? At the top of the hour. You wouldn't, would you? No.
I might do that.
You wouldn't. What time does school, what time they all piss off from school? At the top of the hour. It doesn't work, does it? What time is Prime Minister's question time? That's the top of the hour. Or the bottom of the hour. You get that? Do you get that?
Yes.
You do?
You do.
You say the bottom of the hour?
Yes. Yes.
That's silly, isn't it?
It is. So is this conversation.
Daniel Rayner has emailed on the subject of Joey Deacon. He says, I was sitting meditating the other night and this came to me. It's time that all from a certain generation and stand up and say sorry to Joey Deacon. And on it goes. We'll read that during our private time and see whether we can broadcast it. Thank you, though. Happy Tree says, interesting to hear about the possible inner motives for some people's seemingly altruistic actions. The way I think of selfishness is this. Absolutely everything we do is ultimately selfish. We do things because they are the most acceptable action to take at the time. But acceptable to whom? To what? To ourselves and our consciences, or lack of it? If every impulse, considered reaction, a mixture of the two is ultimately done because we wanted to do it to satisfy our very own reasons, the judgment of whether something might be selfish or not cannot be attributed to bare motivation, but rather to the kinds of things that satisfy someone's own desires, he says. So the question is, do those technically selfish desires benefit only themselves? Or do they benefit themselves plus others, taking account of a wider perspective than the immediate self? the satisfaction of oneself is ever present, and thus assumed since we never do anything that doesn't satisfy ourselves at one level or another. But that doesn't make anybody selfish, I don't think. Now, I remember when I was little, Fiona, somebody said, even if you volunteer to be burned alive at the stake so that somebody else should live...
Yes.
Because you have volunteered, then it's a selfish act.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Which complicates things enormously.
Yes. And you're obviously getting some... You are obviously getting some gain from doing that as well.
Sonny has emailed on the Kennedy assassination. Yes, thank you. We're not going to have time for all of these at the moment. Thank you, Ty Showers, who says tar. Ty says tar, which is cool. On the business of how to submit audio for us to consider playing. Harry says that he thinks Richard was genuine. And Steve Bentley says, interesting you mentioned Paul McKenna in the same conversation as Simon Bates. McKenna was part of a spoof group called the Bastard Brothers, who produced a number of radio parody tapes. Attached is a clip. I don't think it's McKenna in this case, although it is from one simple called Piss Taking. So we'll get to... Thank you, Steve, for this. There was another piece of audio that came in earlier as well. Do you remember when that was?
There it is, flagged at the
Okay,
bottom
I'll
there.
flag both of those because Fiona's got to Scarpa in about half an hour. You're tuned to Play. It's Tommy here, Play Radio. It's Play 2. It's our talk segment. And we've got, let's have a look. It's just gone 20 to 11. Fiona's not with us. You there, Chris? Okay. And Fiona is scarpered home. Is that you, Chris?
Hello.
Hello, Cocker. You all right?
Yes, hello, Shabba. Phil, will you turn that down, please? I'm through. This is important.
What?
Hello.
Hello.
I wish to talk to...
What I was going to say was, Fiona's had to scoot, so it's just you and me, gentle listener, for the last little lap and a half of the show. So a reminder, email studio@playradiouk.com. You can Skype me, play.radio.uk. Switchboard, of course, is 01243. That's the code, 01243, because we're down in Sussex. And the actual number is 556060. 01243 556060.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation.
Play 2 UK's talk shows are expanding. The Sunday Roast from 8 p.m, radio you won't hear anywhere else. Mondays from 8, myself, Tommy Boyd, with at 10, Catherine Catt, live from her dungeon. The Mistress on art, theatre, opera and the boudoir. Tuesdays, Steve Paul and Ali tell it like it is. Wednesday and Thursday, Mike Mendoza, gadgets, current affairs and life. And there's more to come. Check it out. Talk on Play 2 UK.
Play 2 UK, The Tommy Boyd Show.
Yeah, so this is the first time we've tried this on our talk strands on Play Radio UK, on Play 2. We usually have at least a couple of voices. They call them in radio the first and second voice. And sometimes it's 1, 2 and 3 voices. And of course there's folks such as yourself listening either on Skype or on the switchboard or emails. But Fiona's had to Scarpa this evening. Scarpa Flow, Cockney rhyming slang. It was where the Royal Navy, I think, based itself during the Second World War. A place called Scarpa Flow. And so Cockney rhyming slang for go became Scarpa. Anyway, Fiona's had to Scarpa Flow. Family, that's cool. So at 11:15, that means it's just you and me, dear listener. This email's come in from Steve, who says, interesting you mentioned, we're talking about radio earlier on, a chap called Richard called from Wales, who had one of those train spotter-ish photographic memories about just about every moment of radio he's listened to up to the present day. And for some reason, Paul McKenna came into the conversation, and Steve has emailed, interesting you mentioned Paul McKenna in the same conversation as Simon Bates. McKenna was part of a spoof group, the Bastard Brothers, who produced a number of radio parody tapes, and attached is a clip. I don't think it's McKenna in this case, though It's from something simply called piss-taking. So let's see whether we can get this up. Bear with me. I have to save it. Where do I save it to? Bear with me. This is going to be, I suspect, something of a disaster. This file can't be previewed because blah, blah, blah. Bear with me. Right, upgrade to Santa Claus. Right, normally, Fiona adroitly dances her way through moments such as this, but it's myself, so just bear with me here. Got the clip, I'm going to save that. Where do I want to save it? I want to save it to my desktop. I can do this. And we're just not the sort of people who get worried about things, are we? No. So, Simon Bates, save it to the desktop. And off we go to the desktop, and here it is. Here we go.
Butch and sincere, but what was the year? Simon Bastard here, and I shall be talking, talking and talking up to every single Radio 1. I crashed it, but luckily the show's recorded. Our tune this morning is all about the time Gloria Pinn left her home to go to work. All seemed well with her tortoise husband Terry, but she knew something was wrong. As the meteorite ripped her shoulder off, she remembers how Terry's shell had lost some of its luster. The darkness of the manhole Gloria fell down reminded her of Tony's lonely dark tank. And as she starved to death in a Libyan dungeon, the left-behind dock leap was fresh in her mind. Gloria would like Terry to know she's dead. But if she were alive, she'd love you very much, and would like to play our tune for the warped BBC wanker who really writes this crap.
Yes, harsh, and probably would have been harsher if they'd been doing it on the internet, where we can go a little bit further than they were allowed to, I suspect. The Bastard Brothers, who produced a number of radio parody tapes. If you're still listening, Steve, was that broadcast? Or was that just some kind of bootleg underground thing, or maybe some alternative comedy club routine that they used to do? Because it's quite harsh, and the language is quite strong, and they couldn't do it now on mainstream radio, could they? Steve adds, the story about 247 seems a bit dubious, by the way. I agree, Steve, and when I was telling it myself, I wasn't sure whether it was true, but I heard that somewhere along the line they changed the broadcast frequencies for Radio 1, or... yeah, I think it was Radio 1, because a BBC official fell asleep at some kind of European conference at which they were going to divvy up all the various frequencies, because obviously you can broadcast on the same frequency in Latvia as they might be broadcasting on in Norway, because it's unlikely that the transmitters are going to send their signals that far away, a couple of thousand miles. But if you've got a French radio station broadcasting on one wavelength, and there's a British radio station broadcasting on the same wavelength, then you're going to get a little bit of crossover. So this conference was designed to make sure that didn't happen. And the story went, and probably an urban myth, that the BBC executive fell asleep, or something, or wasn't paying attention, or wasn't very forceful. And so the BBC lost one of its cherished wavelengths. I don't know. Steve says, that story about 24/7 seems a bit dubious, by the way. Radio 3 got moved to 247 after the frequency changes. I have some audio, he says, of Radio 3 fading up Tony Blackburn for 30 seconds so their listeners would know where to tune to and put their stickers. Send it to me? Yeah, go on, send it to me. Just have a listen to this clip again. Was this ever played on national radio?
Butch and sincere, but what was the year? Simon Bastard here, and I shall be talking, talking and talking up to every single Radio 1. I crashed it, but luckily the show's recorded. Our tune this morning is all about the time Gloria Pinn left her home to go to work. All seemed well with her tortoise husband Terry, but she knew something was wrong. As the meteorite ripped her shoulder off, she remembers how Terry's shell had lost some of its luster. The darkness of the manhole Gloria fell down reminded her of Tony's lonely dark tank. And as she starved to death in a Libyan dungeon, The Left Behind doc leaf was fresh in her mind. Gloria would like Kerry to know she's dead. But if she were alive, she'd love you very much and would like to play our tune for the warped BBC wanker who really writes this crap.
Yes, I mean, clearly my question, was this ever played on national radio? No, because bastard isn't a word that can be used or is used, I suspect, even late night on the radio. They don't have a watershed on the radio. Because the watershed would mean that strong language and intimate affairs could be discussed freely on the radio after that watershed, if the watershed is used and understood properly. One of the problems that television has, though, where they have a watershed, is that whilst one is not able to say the word fuck, for example, before the watershed, it almost becomes compulsory after the watershed if some kind of language which underlines a piece of script is available. It is the word fuck, and therefore the word fuck gets used so often that one almost is anaesthetised to it. But thank you very much indeed for that clip, Steve. And he adds an email coming in whilst we were having a second listen. He says, it was basically the equivalent of the Christmas tapes that were passed around the TV companies, but for radio intended for internal consumption only until the internet came along. Yeah. So again, that's one of the nice things about the internet, that we can play things like that and be objective about them and basically enjoy. Now, somewhere this afternoon, we've got a link this evening. It's Tommy here, Tommy on his own, just you and me, good listener. Fiona's had to scarp her home, which is cool, family thing. No big panic or anything. They're off on holiday in the morning, and their youngest daughter, who had the option of staying at home because she's in a panto, at 10 o'clock this evening, text to say that she's changed her mind. So Fiona's got to go back to sort out paperwork and blah, 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 and all that sort of thing, and relatives who are going to look after them, blah, 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 blah. So that's cool. So it's just you and me. This is subject Ivan Brackenbury, and the message from Lee Wickstead reads, Hi Tom, after listening to our local fool Les Ross and your enjoyment of his work, have you listened or heard of a stand-up hospital radio comedian, Ivan Brackenbury? His show is just about the funniest I've heard in ages. Here's a YouTube link. Enjoy. So I have no idea what we've got here, but here's the link connecting.
Hospital Radio. With me, Ivan Brackenbury. Ivan Brackenbury. You got me jingles?
Okay, so it's a guy standing on stage. He's got a baseball cap on, looks unnervingly a little bit like Timmy Mallet. He's got a bright red fluorescent shirt, and he is at a stand microphone. He's got one or two little props. I'm just painting the picture so that you know that this is a piece of comedy. And it looks good.
I'm bonkers! He's bonkers! I am bonkers! He's bonkers! I'm alive on a Monday! This keeps happening, but hang on. Wednesday! Okay. They want to do. Friday. 1 minute, I know how this is. Saturday. Sunday. Monday! 1961. 1962. It's another little 1 minute. 1963. 1964. Happy New Year! Keep forgetting to program it. This afternoon's show is brought to you thanks to our sponsors, KY Jelly.
The Ivan Brackenbury Disease Hour on Hospital Radio with KY Jelly for women who married for money.
Baby! Love really hurts you. Love really hurts without you. Disease Hour with Ivan Brackenbury on Hospital Radio. Get well soon. Hello to Alan Manford. Alan is a Jehovah's Witness and a haemophiliac. Is an unlucky combination. I happen to know he's a massive fan of Leona Lewis, and this plays next for him. The whole world's gone a bit mental, really, because, like, I don't know if I should tell you this, but I will, because I think everyone needs to know how mad the world is. I was checking into a hotel here in Edinburgh for the festival, and I couldn't believe my ears with what the bloke in front of me said to the receptionist. He was a youth worker checking in a youth group for a theatre group, and I swear to you, this is what he said to the receptionist. Is the porn channel disabled?
This is very good. Very, very, very good indeed. It's about 8-9 minutes long. So I just thought I'd break it right there, because he's dropped his character as being some kind of a hospital radio DJ, which worked very well. An obvious joke, wasn't it, about Love Really Hurts Without You, dedicated to their sponsor KY Jelly, and the haemophiliac and the Jehovah's Witness. But hey, sometimes the obvious makes us laugh, and if we laugh, that's all that matters, isn't it, really? But now he's gone off into, I presume, a straightforward stand-up comedian's routine, although he's still dressed as a bad disc jockey. Just after, as we say in broadcasting, the top of the hour, and the ad break there, we'll just take the second half of it. It looks as though he's about to launch into a routine about porn for the disabled. Maybe we should get Catherine Catt back. I know it's one of her topics that we've been promising a special on, which is one of the services performed by sex workers for people who are disabled, and Catherine is informed by them are unable to have gratifying sex any other way than by hiring someone like her. But hopefully the routine we're about to listen to after the top of the hour ad break is a little bit funnier than that. Peter says, good evening, Tommy. Did you know that, in fact, Jeremy Kyle presents a football-related phone-in now on TalkSport every Sunday between 12 a.m. and 3 p.m, and believe me, it is awful radio. And my advice to Jeremy Kyle is to stick to your day job, mate. Well, if he's on from 12 o'clock midday until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Peter, unless it gets dark very, very early in London, I think that is a day job. But anyway, I catch your drift. Thank you for that. Now we've got some more email in from Steve as well, who's getting challenging with, who is it who sent in the email about the hospital radio guy? Hold on. That's Lee Wickstead. So thanks for that, Lee, and we'll get to the second half of that one in just a tick. And then we've got one or two more nice clips that have been emailed in from Steve Bentley. The first one, he says, is this the Blackburn... The first clip, he says, is the Blackburn on Radio 3 clip. He says, I'm not sure it's really that interesting unless you wear an anorak. But he then says, I've got lots of further info and clips on the frequency changes here. But then he adds, just hearing the Ivan Brackenbury mentions, I've seen him live and I hadn't laughed so much for ages. Comedy genius. He's got a show on Radio 2 in early January. Yeah, but this is the thing now. He's an edgy-ish comedian doing jokes about KY Jelly and Jehovah's Witnesses and haemophilia. But Radio 2, he's not going to be able to do any of that nowadays. I mean, who'd want to be a comedian? Going on to BBC Radio, going on to Radio 2. Now. End of 2008, beginning of 2009. When I started as a stand-up... I worked for 2 seasons as a stand-up comedian, dear listener friend. And I started telling jokes like, Orange goes to the doctor. The doctor says yes. And the orange says, I'm not peeling very well. And I died. Anna Redcoat came up to me after my first couple of deaths by silence and said, look, mate, he said, they're all grown up. They're not interested in light bulb jokes. They want hard-hitting stuff about foreigners and mother-in-laws. So I told them and it worked. I don't know how difficult it's going to be for a comedian in this day and age when we know that we all have an edge to ourselves because we voted Russell Brand as television comedy act of the year on ITV at the same time as the BBC were saying, you can't go near any of that, mate. I'm sorry. So, it's you and me this evening. Fiona's had to skedaddle. Email studio@playradiouk.com. The Skype address is play.radio.uk. If you want to Skype, I'll do my best. The switchboard number 01243 55 60 60. It's Talk on Play 2 on Play Radio UK.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation.
Play 2 UK's talk shows are expanding. The Sunday Roast from 8 p.m, radio you won't hear anywhere else. Mondays from 8, myself, Tommy Boyd, with at 10, Catherine Catt, live from her dungeon. The Mistress on art, theatre, opera and the boudoir. Tuesdays, Steve Paul and Ali tell it like it is. Wednesday and Thursday, Mike Mendoza, gadgets, current affairs and life. And there's more to come. Check it out. Talk on Play 2 UK.
My mum logged on to Play Radio UK and treated herself to some amazing Swarovski jewellery from the Scala Jewellery. She looks $1 million. You should see all the other mums and dads' faces when she picks me up from school. She's the classiest mum ever. She said the Scala Jewellery is handmade in Italy with Swarovski stones. Mum said if I'm good, she'll buy me some of the Scala Jewellery when I'm a bit older. Have a look for yourself. Go to playradiouk.com and click on the Scala Jewellery today.
Broadcasting live to the UK. News, information, entertainment, and the best music from the past 40 years. This is Play 2 UK. Tommy Boyd. Call 01243 55 60 60. Email studio@playradiouk.com. Skype play.radio.uk. Now, live from the south coast of England, the Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
It's just myself with you for this last lap of the Monday show. It's December the 8th, the anniversary of the day they shot, Mark Chapman shot John Lennon. We've been talking about that tragic event and also the various conspiracy theories that have sprung up around it, and conspiracy theories in general. And we will be talking about 9/11. JFK, if anybody does want to go there, and we've had one email on that this evening, but some of the other more obscure conspiracy theories. There's that one that the Titanic wasn't the Titanic, but was a sister ship that had been fatally holed below the waterline after an accident between itself and a Royal Navy ship. And the inquiry found that the Royal Navy ship was not to blame, and therefore the owners of the Titanic had to stand the cost of repairing the thing. And so, according to the conspiracy theory, and there's a couple of solid books out about this, the ship that sailed the Atlantic and hit the iceberg wasn't the Titanic. It was a ship that was destined to sink anyway. That was the idea. It was going to be sunk so that they could get the insurance back, claiming that it was an entire ship. Okay, there's that one, so we could discuss that one. There's the obscure conspiracy theory that Star Trek, the TV series, is somehow sponsored by the Ku Klux Klan, which is one that we like. There's another even more obscure conspiracy theory, which is that the former Prime Minister John Major is not John Major, never was John Major, but in fact is a smart aleck KGB spy secreted into this country at quite an early age, early 20s, given a fake identity and told to climb the greasy political pole and get as close to Downing Street as he possibly could in order to relay back secrets. And he got very close, didn't he? In fact, he got into number 10 Downing Street only to discover that the Cold War was over and there was nowhere for him to go and nothing for him to report. And all he ever wanted to do the whole time he was there was go home, drink vodka and play the balalaika. So we're discussing that conspiracy theory as the weeks unfold. Let's take a quick Skype call if I'm up to it. Yes, good evening, Chris.
Oh, blimey, oh, steady on. Oh, hello.
You all right there? You sound as though you're having a movement.
Well, I have. I've been moving about a bit today. Can you hear me, Mr. Boyd?
No.
Shit, again, Phil. The acoustics in there. You're going to have to take that wall out when you finish cleaning that squid.
Is it a stud wall or is it a...
Ah, he can hear us.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, he might be able to hear us. Easy. I know you're a big fan of the... Is there a Catherine Cat gone?
She's gone.
She's got... Nice. Well, if you get a minute or two, Tom, and you can tell me whether you can hear me, if it is studio quality, I'd probably frighten everybody that's listening.
It's studio quality in terms of the audio, but I'm not convinced about the content.
OK, then, hang on a second. The lazy brown fox jumped over the frog.
It would, wouldn't it?
Is it working?
Is that the lazy brown fox jumped over the... Nah, what is that? I don't care.
Can't hear it. I would very much like if you could facilitate this, Mr. Boyd.
Yeah.
To speak some fat Steve if you got him on your, what they call them, Hewlett Packard calculator.
Yes. Fat Steve Skyped in earlier to say that he's not going to be around this evening. Something to do...
Yeah, on the piss again. Oh, well, yes. OK, well, I'll leave my Dutch lesson till tomorrow.
OK.
I was going to ask him, I'm stuck. Can you hear me?
No.
Oh, God, that's it. No feedback, Phil. There's either too much or there's none. You don't know who you're addressing, do you? I'm on lesson 13. This is for the podcast, Mr. Boyd, if you give me a minute. I'm on lesson 13 in Speak Dutch in 3 months.
Go on, then.
It's not interesting. It's not Radio 5. If you want to go listen to Radio fucking 5, listen to it. These are my extended...
Give us a little taste of the Diary of Anne Frank, then, if you speak Dutch.
Well, I don't speak Dutch. I'm on lesson 13. 41 modal verbs. I probably should have done auxiliary verbs, I reckon.
I must just tell you, and I will, I must just tell you, when they did a Broadway version of the Diary of Anne Frank, apparently it was so dull that when the Germans searched the house, the crowd was shouting, "She's in the cellar."
Oh, no.
Anyway, carry on.
Steve, never was next door to her, did he?
I don't know. I'm going to bring a caller in here and try and just spice it all up.
Find out if they speak Dutch, Sam.
All right, stay there. Hello, caller, on line 3. You're through. You're on Talk on Play 2. Do you speak Dutch?
Hello?
Hello?
No, I don't.
Hello,
is that Chris?
Hello, Eddie.
Hello, how are you,
Chris? Johnny. Good evening, Johnny.
Good evening, Chris. How are you?
I'm very well. Birmingham is all right tonight.
How's your arable land up there, son?
It's all right. I tell you what we can do. We can do with a few more farmers in this urban landscape we have.
I was going to say, are you at all worried about this Irish pork scenario?
Shitting myself. Absolutely shitting. No, funny enough, it's the first I've heard about it, to tell you the truth.
Is it?
I don't know. What is it, a pork? Pork, you say?
Pork, yes.
Swine?
Well, I have a theory.
Okay.
Wait, I have a theory. Well, the thing is, right, if you look at the Irish exports over the years, I mean, they're all a bit ropey. I mean, when was it, if you're going to buy a laptop at the side of the road out of someone in a van...
We make the best rope. The Birmingham Hemp Corporation.
I say they're generally Irish people selling laptops out of vans and cameras and the like. And I think they've been pumping their pork full of growth hormone, because I think the Irish are a short race. on the whole.
They had more varieties of pig than we used to have. They did away with them, you know, so they could help the Danish. That's
It's
what
like
I heard.
BSE all over again. I mean, the funny thing is, you know, the government are a bit worried about, like, a bit of carcinogenic chemical in a bit of pork, yeah? Yeah, I don't see them running to whip I don't see them running to whip the Benson and Hedges off the shelves, do you?
Dunno, they got all those pictures of people with their throats hanging out on the side of the fags, didn't
I know,
they?
I got one here. I mean, like, it's disturbing. It ain't stopping me, but it's like a red beard, this chap.
Propensity and propinquity, isn't it? I don't know what it is. We might die of it, but we might get run over a bus, so we might as well have a fag.
Have you seen the one with the chap with the lump on his throat?
No, I haven't, so I'm going to stay up. Yeah, everybody else has, and they come round and tell me, Johnny, promise you. I said, well, I don't want to know. I got my juicy fruits here, that's why I wanted to have a word with Fat Steve. See if you know whether it's cheap. Anyway, that's all by the by. But roken verruses skat vergestappen van de bloody blaten uit de flaten bloody rats. Which you probably know exactly what that means. It's
Whatever,
doodlick.
I know. He needs a whiskey
Smoking
shade.
is doodlick. Do you have a fag, don't you, Eduardo?
Who?
Oh, fuck it, I keep blowing his cover there. Oh. That's me, XMI5, and I blow everybody's cover.
Chris, you've been a Port Slade lately.
They are the pig market. Quiet is... Silence in the pig market. Oh, bloody hell.
He's got some pigs.
Well, I don't know what's going on. I think we're being unheld. I'm highly flattered if this is... We're taking over the show, you know, Eduardo.
Oh, I don't know. It's nice. I mean, I was in Port Slade today. Have you been there?
You what, mate?
I've been in Port Slade.
Port Slade?
Yeah, I was there today, and you know what happened?
Oh, yeah.
I go there about once a month, right?
Yeah.
And the fucking railway crossing thing is always down, and it was down again.
Can't help but moan you, can you?
You think they've put a sensor in my car or something?
Are you back home now?
Right, bastards they are. Port Slade.
He's a pig smuggler. I tell you what, I know somebody who was into... He was called Piggy Davis, but that's another... Anyway, what do you want to
Piggy
talk
Dave?
about? I want to talk to Tammy. I
Yeah,
wanted to get a Dutch lesson.
I've had enough of you, because you're very
I know.
rude.
Well, I wanted to talk to Kat, because I wanted to know, right? Everybody's going to what's your tariff, how much is it, and all this. You know, the simple questions, the easy questions.
I wondered
Well,
if there
I
were
wanted
any
to know.
pictures of
Go
the
on.
lady
I didn't
on the
hear that.
internet.
Everyone wants pictures of Catherine.
Beautiful cat. Anyway, what I wanted to ask her, because she has such a lovely voice, and she's so articulate and all that. What I wanted to ask her is, never mind the tariff, whatever the tariff is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Whatever the tariff is, I would like to know if she charged a little bit extra for that, you know, the naughty talk. And as you say, Tom, I'm with you very much when you say, oh, you know, we should express ourselves with our full chaucer. Anyway, it's all that. Fucking hard. Thanks.
Do you knock over my candle, sweetheart?
And I just wondered, when she has one of the pumpkins, and they agree, and like, oh, whatever happens between them, she takes control, and the people who are strapped to the wall and have all terrible stuff done to them. I just wondered if it's like almost Tracy's, what's she call it, vanilla sex, I can't remember.
Yes, they call it... If you just want to lie on top of somebody and...
Right.
And have sex like that, then that's vanilla sex.
Right.
Vanilla. Tommy?
Yeah?
Can I ask a question? Because I really only called up because I got a new headset, and I'm calling you, right, not on the Skype, but from the telephone number.
Yes? You are?
So, like, through BT, from Skype, through headset. How does it sound?
Pretty good, but nothing special.
Hang on to me, Johnny.
I wanted to be like you said, like we were there in the studio with you.
No, you can't do that using the old technology of telephones. But
So
Skype.
I can Skype you then.
Yes, I'd rather you Skyped.
Makes us all sound like we're having a shit, especially if we think we're going to get cut off, John?
It does when
if
you
we
start.
know we're all right for a minute or two before the weather.
It depends on whether you. It depends on whether you start off groaning in the way that you did, Chris. But thank you very much indeed.
Me?
Yes, you. But thank you very. Yeah, but
I
thank.
never asked.
No,
No,
it doesn't.
hang on. Come on.
Let it lie. And we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you very much indeed for your wisdom.
No, I never asked. I never got my points across.
I had this, so I don't know how this works.
Point was, does she charge extra?
For?
I don't care how much she charges. Does she charge extra for talking dirty?
Well, I'll ask her next week.
Well, yeah, but I was going to ask her if you'd have fucking sorted the buttons out. I was on before and nobody's here to help me with lesson 13, my modal valve. Oh, it's a bit of a waste of bandwidth, he says.
Thank you very much indeed. And thank you too, caller with the new headset.
Johnny Arzenfarzen's my name.
Johnny Arzenfarzen, thank you very much indeed. It's playradiouk.com. It's Play 2. It's our talk segment, and this evening it's just with myself, Tommy Boyd, and you, dear listener. Fiona's had to skedaddle home to deal with a nice one. A nice, it was not a family problem at all. It's a nice turn-up in the family department. Let's grab the news.
Play 2 UK. Headlines.
One of the officials at the centre of the Baby P child abuse case has been dismissed. Sharon Shoesmith, head of the Children's Services at Haringey Council in London, has already been suspended on full pay, but a panel of councillors have decided that she'll receive no compensation. The toddler, of course, died after months of abuse, despite being on the authorities' at-risk register. A Frenchman's been jailed for life for trying to kill schoolgirl Jessica Knight. Police are dealing with what they describe as a disturbance at a young offenders' prison in Aylesbury. Do you like the way I'm getting the intonation right here? Officers were called to the incident this morning and quickly cordoned off the site in Buckinghamshire. Security at Stansted Airport is under urgent review. That's a drop of the voice there, just to... After environmental campaigners broke in, more than 50 flights were cancelled when they blocked the runway. Police have made 57 arrests, and a slightly lighter one. And today's being dubbed Mega Monday for online Christmas presents. More than 2 million are expected to be bought over the net.
Play 2 UK. Weather.
Rain affecting southern areas of England and Wales will spread steadily southeastwards, clearing the far southeast around dawn, otherwise dry and clear, with frost forming inland. Tomorrow, Tuesday, many areas dry and sunny but cold. Some showers on western coasts and hills. These wintry over northern hills. Feeling cold in the northwesterly breeze.
You're up to date on Play 2 UK. PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation.
Here you are, sweetheart. Merry Christmas.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mum. Great. A yak wool jumper. You really shouldn't have. You really shouldn't have. I wish you hadn't. It's the same every year. I wish you'd just go to Universal Posters. They have a fantastic range of approved pictures of some of my favourite celebrities, all digitally signed in their own handwriting. Mum could even have got one personalised just for me. Prices start from $7.99, so don't let your loved ones down this Christmas. Just go to playradiouk.com and click on the Universal Poster banner.
Are you going to give me a hand out in the kitchen then?
Yes, Mum, I'll help you stuff the turkey in a minute. Yeah, with this jumper.
Right then, what was the web address?
passiononline.co.uk.
Oh, you would look really sexy in that. Okay, that's in the shopping cart.
Imagine the fun we could have with them.
Yeah. Okay, I've ordered something for you. Something for us. How about this for me?
passiononline.co.uk has something for everybody, with a fast, discreet delivery service, competitive pricing, and a free gift with every order for a limited time. See our massive product mix online right now. Click passiononline.co.uk, the world's sexiest online shop.
The soundtrack to your festive season. Play Christmas UK.
Ho, ho, ho. Hello, boys and girls. Santa here. Pipe down, Rudolph. Ho, ho, ho. As you can tell, Christmas in the Claus household is well and truly underway. As with any family, it's a busy time for us too, and sometimes things can get a little heated, with Mrs. Claus always wanting to listen to Play Rock. When all I want to listen to is my favourite festive songs on Play Christmas. Nothing but the season's music from the Play Radio Network. Now, where did I put that eggnog? Ho, ho, ho,
Play Christmas UK.
Part of the PlayRadioUK.com network.
Tommy Boyd on Play 2 UK, the original cunning linguist.
Steve Bentley has emailed in a link to a piece of comedy by a man called Ivan Brackenbury. We were talking earlier with a man called Richard, a remarkable youngish Welshman whose virtual total recall of anything he's ever heard on the radio since Tony Blackburn and Paul Hollingdale launched Radio 1 and 2 in, was it 1967? Anyway, Steve has emailed in a link to a guy called Ivan Brackenbury, a really funny stage comedian, alternative obviously, who's got his own show coming up on Radio 2, no doubt a pretty milky version of what he does on stage. The first half of his act, which we've just listened to, is Ivan having a go at being a hospital radio disc jockey. Part of his show is sponsored by KY Jelly, and the song into it is Love Really Hurts Without You. Ho, ho, ho. But he does it well. And in the second bit of his act, which is about 3 minutes long, which we're about to hear now, he's just launched into a story about the fact that he checked into a hotel at Edinburgh. It's part of the festival. And there was a youth group, in front of him checking in, and the guy in charge asked if the porn channel was disabled.
Unbelievable, really is. Right, well, if you love your country music, you're going to love the next show on Hospital Radio, Joan Arkwright's Country Tracks. It's an absolutely amazing show, and she's a lovely lady and an amazing broadcaster as well, and she probably won't thank me for saying this, but she's been off with a vaginal prolapse, and we've really missed her, Joan Arkwright's Country Tracks on after this show on Hospital Radio.
Joan Arkwright's Country Tracks.
Right, hello to Robin Mace now, and this is the cheekiest text I ever did see. He says, Dear Ivan, I've been in bed all week with Mrs. A. Oh my God, Mrs. A! How cheeky is that? She sounds like a right man-eater, doesn't she? Mrs. A! Unbelievable. I've misread it. He's been in bed all week with MRSA. Someone's not put the dots in. Hello to Ashley Ward, enjoying hospital at the moment. He's enjoying it because normally he's in prison. He is 18 years old. Last year he was done for perjury, and now he has to share a cell with another man who insists on having the top bunk, and he wets the bed. This is for Ashley on Hospital Radio. Bank Holiday Monday! In England! Chesterfield, where we're broadcasting to.
Not bad. I'm just going to listen to the first 10 seconds again, because I do like... He was struggling with the jingles.
Ivan Brackenbury! You got me jingles? And I'm bonkers!
He's bonkers.
I am bonkers.
He's bonkers.
Oh, we're live on a Monday! This keeps happening, but hang on.
Wednesday.
They're one of them.
Thursday.
Right, 1 minute, I know how this is.
Saturday. Sunday.
Monday!
1961. 1962.
Very good. Right, who we got? Is it Oscar there?
Hang on, yes it is. But I just need to do that because this is what happens with my Skype. You can hear me all right, can you, Tom?
Yep, very well. What is it happens with your Skype?
Well, since I downloaded the latest update, it automatically mutes my voice in my own headphones when I make or receive a call. And I have to manually click it back so that I can hear my own voice in the mix that's in my own headphones, which I like to do.
It's interesting because it's so often the case with technology. Once we learn how we can compensate for its idiosyncrasies, that's fine. But surely it's not supposed to do that, or is it?
Well, I think the thinking behind it is the way most people are going to use it, that it's better because there's going to be less chance of the feedback happening if it automatically mutes people's microphones. Most people, I guess, if they've got the headset, the sound in their own earpieces is not that loud, just loud enough for them to hear the audio coming back from the other person. And they're not so used to hearing their own voice in the headphones, which is something that I like to do. So maybe I'm a little bit unusual in that sense.
This may not be true, but since you mentioned that, this may not be true, I'm about to say, but somebody who appeared to know what he's talking about told me it. The reason that the vast majority of people shout into their mobile phones, he said, is because, but they don't shout into landline phones, is because when you're listening on a landline phone and talking, half of what you say is relayed back into the earpiece so that you can hear yourself. But because that would drain the power in a mobile phone, the earpiece on a mobile phone doesn't carry any of what you're saying when you speak to somebody else. So unconsciously, people who are brought up on landlines where they can hear themselves in their own earpiece shout into mobile phones because they think that they're not coming across. Do you know what I'm talking about here?
Yeah, I do, and that is true. What I was going to say, you know, on a normal phone you can hear yourself in your own earpiece, can't you? As you speak, your own voice is relayed back to you.
On a normal landline phone, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, it's just a minor point. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the current situation that you find yourself in, but an incidental question perhaps before I do that. I wonder if there's any thoughts down at Play Radio Towers of having a word with or perhaps inviting in a certain Mr. Alex Dyke.
Yeah.
Seeing as how he's apparently no longer doing his phone-ins and these music shows on the Isle of Wight radio thing. I was wondering whether if he's sort of local enough or the sort of person that might be someone who would be interesting to invite in at some point.
Yeah, we're talking to Alex.
You are?
I'd love him to come and do some things here. I think he's great.
No, I thought it was an idea because supposedly known for sometimes controversial phone-ins, although his phone-in I think used to just be like 1 hour of what was otherwise a normal music show, I think, wasn't it? And he's apparently been let go, hasn't he? They said they weren't going to renew his contract at the end of the year, and then he had the usual thing of being hauled into the office the other day and was told that the show that you've just done, I'm afraid that was your last show. They don't seem to give people even the chance to say their goodbyes when they're anticipating that they might get a chance to say their goodbyes on what they think is going to be their last show. That one never materialises. They get cut short by a few days or a few weeks or something.
Yeah, but, that's because of the almost always ill-founded fear that the presenter or host or whatever you call them in question is going to say something they'd find embarrassing. That's disappointing, but then the decisions that they're making with regard to interesting radio is also disappointing, so I would be happy to go on record and say that practically everything about the people who behave in this way is disappointing. The decisions that they make and the ways in which they execute them. And I would be absolutely delighted to hear from any of the suits, executives, people who are responsible for imposing this kind of anodyne diarrhea on the airwaves. I would be delighted, I would love it if any of them could momentarily justify, just in any cultural way, what it is they're doing. And they can't, and they won't, but they can't. And the reason they can't is because they're only doing it because they have poxy little jobs, and they're being told by slightly less poxy people, slightly higher up the food chain, that this is what they have to do. And it's a joke, and it's one of only a few things that this country should be ashamed of, that all this is happening at the moment to our radio, that there is this climate of fear in places where they used to say words like fuck, and this massive drive towards incredible mediocrity, unbelievable mediocrity, mind-numbing mediocrity. I'm glad I don't drive more than about 20 minutes a day now, because I like to listen to the radio, but as I pip along the dial, I just can't find anything that doesn't make me think that I'm living in a Stalinist country with the kind of controls and, absolute absence of anything interesting, provoking, provocative, different. There's nothing different. And I think if I drove for a living, I don't know what I'd do. Because you can listen to CDs for only a certain amount of the time. You want some company.
Sure.
You want an interesting person coming out of your dashboard.
It sounds like an interesting throwing down of the gauntlet, Tommy, to say to anyone out there who's a radio executive or a senior person in the field of radio, whether it be regulation or management of the radio stations, let's hear some of you, because I know those kind of people are going to be listening to these sort of broadcasts, whether it be live or on the podcast. Let's hear some of you have the balls to come on one of these programs and explain why it is you've made such a major cock-up of the industry that is supposed to be out there entertaining us and
stimulating. And
and being a part of the infrastructure of our society, and yet it's so bland and dull and boring.
Providing us with a wide range of people. I mean, I'm astonished now that almost everybody on the radio appears to have been punched out of the same mould. On most of the commercial radio stations, which are getting by on a shoestring, it's kids who live at home with their mums, who've never been kissed, who don't know anything about the world, chirping away in between every third record and trailing ahead to the fact that there's the travel coming up. And if you do have a station that allows or is required to, and therefore they grudgingly have it happen, an element of speech or talk or whatever, the word has gone out. Be careful. Do not take any risks. Do not say anything with any colour or vigour or sincerity or emotion or passion. Bleed all of those things out of what you're saying. For fear of what? For fear that somebody, one of the Green Ink Brigade, will write a letter and it'll get to an organisation who depend on getting complaints so that they can justify their existence and their salary by occasionally taking some disproportionate and swinging overreaction against a radio station that, does cross the line. Some do from time to time. So what? We all park on double yellow lines, We all occasionally say things down the phone we don't mean because we're fed up with the organisation that we're dealing with because it's driving us up the wall. So we all cross the line. But not in radio, not anymore. No more, and not for the foreseeable future as well. But hey, listen, Oscar, you and I know that that's not going to happen. People from conventional radio still think that their industry is superior to new media. And so they don't want to dignify new media by appearing on it. Secondly, they think they might be in trouble with the suits further up the food chain if they came on and said who they were. Even if they were trying to defend their organisations, they would be told by their bosses that they should have sought permission first, because it is that kind of a Stalinist industry at the moment. And if they were to justify it, they would say, look, it's my job, that's what I've got to do, I've got 2 kids at school, I've got to pay for them. And they would also say, of course, well, the public listen. We put on bland radio, and the public listen. And if that's what they want, that's what we're going to give them. And the truth is that when occasionally a radio station tries to do something different, it doesn't rate its arse off. So maybe, Oscar, the public is to blame to a certain extent.
Yeah, I've got a lot of sympathy with that, actually. You say that, the public, it's tempting to come to the conclusion that the public are so stupid that do they deserve people out there making an effort to put out some good radio. But of course the people who are interested in radio from their own point of view, just for the benefit of themselves in a way, to feel that they're being creative and producing something that's different and that might stimulate and interest people, people tend to want to do it anyway. And then I suppose you hope then that there will be an uptake in due course, that people will over the course of time realise that the more inventive and unusual ways of doing things can often be the best. I mean, speaking of which, I mentioned about this, I think, on one of the very earliest broadcasts that you did on Play, about Talk 107. I know they're a good few hundred miles up north of where Play Radio are and where I am, up in Edinburgh, in the capital of Scotland. But we're speaking about what a mess people make of radio. I mean, what on earth is going on there, Tommy? What? I mean,
okay,
are UTV a bunch of idiots or what?
Yeah.
Because you've got a fantastic opportunity there, a talk radio station which is unusual because it's in amongst a lot of music radio stations, in the capital of a nation which is likely to become an independent nation if the trends continue as they've been going over the last few years. So why on earth, on an FM frequency in a wonderful area like that, why can a radio group like UTV not find a talent who are able to put together a plan to manage something as wonderful as a news and talk radio station in Edinburgh, in Scotland? And they've made such a hash of it over the couple of years or so that they've had it, trying a little bit of this and a little bit of that without a clue of what they're doing, and bumbling and stumbling. And then the latest kind of change that they made, supposedly having listened to focus groups, and focus groups can have their use, but my God, if you interpret focus groups in the wrong way, obviously it can send you way off course. And what you've got now with Talk 107 in Edinburgh is that the latest guy who UTV put in place there as the management has come up with these brilliant ideas, and of course it's gone from bad to worse. And the thing's now kind of up for sale there, and well, we don't know. But it's a valuable license.
Is it, how much are they selling it? How much are they selling it for then?
Well, I mean, they haven't said it. As it stands at the moment, it makes such a loss month on month that it's not really worth anything, that you would want them to pay you to take it off their hands.
Well, you know, there have been radio stations going for £1.
Well, that's the sort of thing that you would anticipate that it would be. But of course, if you went and asked them and said, well, I'll give you £1 for it and I'll take it off your hands, then obviously the ongoing debts, the month-by-month debts, they offload that. But they probably wouldn't want to do that. They say, well, no, it's a valuable license. Well, if it's a valuable license and you're a radio group that is in the business of owning valuable licenses, why can you not make a success of a wonderful one that you've got there? That doesn't say very much about your competence as a radio group, does it? That you can't find anyone who can run it.
Nope.
And of course what they've done there is they've gone into this, well, first of all, a talk radio station that has sacked all its callers, and about sacking presenters. But how can you have a talk radio station that says, well, I'll tell you what we'll do, let's ditch all the callers, let's not bother with them? Yeah, how brainless is that?
Sorry, you're ahead of me. What have they done? I don't know anything about this.
Well, nice job, UTV. Very clever. Let's have a talk radio station and let's all talk amongst ourselves in the studio.
What, you mean they don't talk, they don't take calls anymore?
Well, the format now does not really encourage... They'll mention the number and this, but they don't get any calls. And, of course, when you don't get any calls, then other people don't really feel like that they have a place calling.
So what are they trying to do? They're trying to sound like Radio 4 or something, with lots of interviews and experts and guests and authors.
I mean, that's the only good thing that I would say about it is that they've said, well, let's try and keep it humorous, rather than being all the serious, which I think is one of the mistakes, although it's debatable whether it's a mistake. It's one of those things that seems to be swings and roundabouts a bit with LBC, where they went from the Chrysalis was more light-hearted and the Global now are more serious news talk, topical, and the more zany callers are discouraged. But up there they've said, well, let's try and keep the chat fun, so some of the presenters will joke amongst themselves. But it is very much talking amongst themselves. With a couple of practically all the shows are double headers, and they have the news people coming in doing bits and bobs, and it is that kind of, what I've heard you say in the past is more what you would call speech radio rather than talk radio, where the discussion is internal. And when you shut off, it was building slowly, admittedly not to the same degree that they would perhaps have expected. They weren't getting the level of calls that perhaps they might have anticipated, but they were getting callers on most of the shows. But that was all kind of gone out of the window, and it was sort of back to the drawing board with an idea which was a heck of a lot worse than what they were developing prior to the changes.
Okay, listen, you stay right where you are, Oscar, for the moment. It's just gone 22:12, that is, midnight in the UK. Good day around the world. Hi if you're podcasting. We'll do this, and then we'll be back talking a little bit more about radio.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation.
If you want to increase your profits, go the extra mile for your customers, and bring loyalty to your business, then you need Play in Store, in-house or online. Play in Store is your personal, made-to-measure music and marketing tool. Using the latest technologies, you can create your own tailor-made music and messaging service, which until now has been unaffordable to everyone but the biggest businesses. Get more from your business by creating your own radio station. Go to playinstore.co.uk.
Ever imagined yourself behind the wheel of a Ferrari, Aston Martin or Lamborghini? We'll turn it into a reality with an Everyman driving experience. Take control of a Mini from £30, a Ferrari from £75, or try the Audi R8 Thrill experience from £99. We can also offer that extra special gift this Christmas with one of our driving experience vouchers. For more details or to book, call the company with 25 years in the business. Everyman Driving Experiences on 01 455 841 670 or go to www.everymanracing.co.uk. Your driving adventure starts here.
After that someone special, well, you could always try speed dating.
So what, you ended up burying her in the garden?
But that's when people started calling me Michelle.
And, of course, the smell of cats that goes after an hour.
Or you could try something different. Every day, more and more people are getting hooked up. See what all the fuss is about. Go to www.something.info.
Something. Tommy Boyd on Play 2 UK. A super song of sanctity in a weird and wacky world.
Just before we go back to it, Oscar, I have to apologise to Tamsin, who has emailed to say that she has sent in 2 emails earlier, which didn't get read out, and that's true. But Tamsin, I'm sorry, that was only because it was just an oversight, because they've been coming in this evening, and I always, Tamsin's are good emails. They're all good, but Tamsin's put a bit of thought into them. So I usually put them in my back pocket. But Tamsin's told me off because she sent in 2, and she says they're not aired. I guess they were not good enough, and I don't quite fit into your programmes now. It's not true, Tamsin. Don't overreact here. She says, I may try harder or know my limit. Don't stay with this because there's a good punchline. She says, I hear you talking about the radio wasteland now. I still find occasional inspired listening out there. There is the Today programme. I love it in the mornings, and it often affects the news for the day. And I have to say that we do have some very good local radio, and there is only a fucking 8 weeks before the return of Jonathan Ross. Which is funny, Tamsin. And that's why we like your emails. Thank you, mate. Oscar, where were we?
Well, we're just talking about Talk 107 and the state that's in. I don't know if you fancy buying it, Tommy, but someone with some gumption really needs to get in there and take it off the idiots that are UTV and the fool that they put in there to manage it when it made its last changes. And he's talking about trying to organise a management buyout. Well, I hope if he's thinking of doing a management buyout that he's got some idea of changing it in a better way if he manages to succeed to get the backing to buy it out. Because, and then if he's going to buy it out and try and keep it going, you'd have to ask yourself, well, if he's going to change it, well, why didn't he change it while he's working for UTV?
Yeah,
as a manager of that particular station.
He may have been under restraint from UTV. That is a possibility. It could be that the people at UTV don't know how to programme cheaply and effectively a radio station which talks. But I'm lucky enough to have been dispatched to America to spend time and study what they're doing with their talk radio, which is fantastic. And came away knowing and understanding the science and the thought and the care and the creativity and damn it, the love that they put into talking. But then you see, for Americans, talking is easy. They're comfortable talking. Almost every American is a potential broadcaster. They exercise interesting and vigorous ideas, and they articulate them with style and with passion and with strength. They're natural communicators. They're not afraid of being heard. They're not afraid of being seen. Whereas there is something about, it has to be said, the English, particularly in the south of England, who are very cautious about expressing themselves, and particularly nervous about being on the radio. And so there is a challenge, what I've found from having done national phone-in radio, there is a challenge about doing phone-in radio in certain parts of the country. It's more difficult in the south of England, and I suspect it's more difficult in the east of Scotland. I think in the west of Scotland, in Glasgow, in places like Newcastle, Manchester, Liverpool, and to a lesser extent, but nevertheless I will include Birmingham, it's quite easy because for some reason that I don't understand, and you're an intelligent person, Oscar, I'd love to get your reaction to this insight. It does seem to me that there are parts of England where you're unlikely to get a hot switchboard. And they are the south of England, and in particular Kent and Surrey, and in Scotland, over on the Edinburgh side of things. So maybe that's not a great place for the radio authority, or Ofcom as it is now, to find out whether the commercial sector can sustain a commercial talk radio station. Maybe they should have put it in Glasgow. Or,
well, I heard that argument said about Talk 107 that it was on the wrong side of Scotland, but I find it a little bit hard to believe. Yes, culturally there may be some slight differences, but I think once you get conversations flowing, then people do want to join in. There definitely is more of a shyness on the eastern side there, but I mean, in the south and the southeast, there was a time, wasn't there, when BBC Southern Counties Radio was all talk all the time. I'm sure you remember that, and I thought that at the time it wasn't too bad, was it? And it seemed to sustain.
Speech, and I do, sorry to interrupt you, but I do adhere very strongly to the distinction between speech and talk. And it was, again, when I was in the States, what I was told about the history of their talk radio is as follows. Once the big chains had bought up all the music radio stations that were available, the only stations that they could buy were speech stations, which were almost like public service stations in the middle of nowhere. So they bought one. They bought one and decided to take it to pieces to see how it worked or didn't work. And what they discovered was a radio station that was, first of all, top-heavy with staff, because the breakfast show would have 2 presenters, a sports jock, a newsreader, a producer, 2 researchers, a tech op, and somebody hanging around to make the coffee. They'd also be highly budgeted because they would have to have guests. Those guests would have to have taxis. Sometimes they'd have to have hotels. Sometimes the guests would actually want paying to come on. So what they did was they said, right, get rid of all of that. So they sacked all these speech people, and they brought in a few old, drunken disc jockeys who had hit 50, and it didn't quite sound right anymore to have them introducing Bruce Springsteen or whatever. These people were craggy-voiced, craggy-faced, craggy people, and they had attitude. they knew how to hold centre stage in a rock and roll type way. So what they were told was, do rock and roll, but without the songs, because you're not allowed to play any, because you've got a speech licence. So they got rid of all the researchers and the producers and tech ops and all the rest of it, and they got rid of all the experts. They got rid of the guests. They got rid of the authors who would come on air for half an hour just because they'd written a book. They got rid of them all. And instead of talking about politics and gardening and car maintenance, and some guy's written a book because he's climbed the Matterhorn, instead of doing any of that shite, they talked about things that people care about, which is the things that make them angry and passionate. They talked about love. They talked about life. They talked about friendships. They talked about their pets. They talked about the problems of modern life, the subjects that you get in songs, and they did them in a kind of a rock and roll way. And what they've ended up within the United States is a type of radio that's more popular than music, because they've attacked it intelligently, and they've attacked it with respect for the audience, because it is about the things that the audience is interested in. And I'm afraid that the people who get themselves into important positions in British radio don't trust the great unwashed British public enough to want to hear what they have to say, to want to have conversations on their radio stations about the things that the British people are interested in or care about. They feel it's somehow base, and they want to somehow feel that they're part of an elevated artistic business, and of course they're not. They're part of a business that's going to the dogs, going to the war, losing money, and ain't going to work. And that's, as Forrest Gump says, all I have to say about that.
Well, it's interesting you talk about the United States as well. It brings me to something I was going to talk to you about regarding the situation you find yourself in, sitting there on your own now, without even a producer. I think that's kind of interesting as well, because I know when I'm listening to talk radio, in a way, the more people that there are in the studio, in a sense, the less I feel that the presenter is talking to me, the listener.
Yes. Totally. Utterly agree with you. Totally. It's bloody lazy to fill your studio with half a dozen flaming voices. Even Wogan's at it now. Wogan, the most loquacious broadcaster we will ever have. Even he now is up to his ears in his producer and his travel person and his bloody newsreader. He does from time to time address himself at you, Wogan. But Oscar, you're totally right. You're totally right. And when Fiona said, I've got a scarper, she said, will you be all right? I said, of course I'll be all right. She said, but what will you do? I said, I'm all right because people like Oscar and Chris and what have you will phone and people will email things. But the difference is, yeah, Oscar, now I'm able to talk to you.
Yeah.
It's more powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to
check out in the States. I mean, Rush Limbaugh, who's the biggest of the talk jocks, whether you like him or you don't like him, you listen to the program or you examine the style of his show, and he does it on his own.
I know.
Well, he's got a producer there talking in his talkback in his earphones and people taking the calls and lining them up, but he doesn't have all the guests. No. And a lot of the other successful talk presenters that are networked in the States and are successful in the States do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I heard Rush Limbaugh, I was astonished because he did they call a monologue. He started his show off and just went, hi, Rush Limbaugh here. Now, what was it I wanted to speak with you about today? Oh, yes, I remember. Anyway, he went off like that. And about 5 or 6 minutes in, he was still on like that. Now, I can't remember why, but I had to switch off and come back again later. So I thought that by the time I got back, he'd be well into calls or something. And I came back and he was 22 and a half minutes and he was still on the same thing, which was Newt Gingrich. and the last time that was it. Yes, the last time I spoke with Newt. Now, when was that? And I was wondering, I came back, and he's still yakking on about the last time he spoke to Newt Gingrich on the phone. I thought, well, how can this be America's top-rated talk show? And of course it was because he was talking to me. He wasn't talking to somebody else in the studio. He was addressing me, and the way he was talking to me made me feel that it was rude of me to duck out of the room and go and do something for 10 minutes because a man was talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
Little but important psychologies like that, Oscar, are being... people like UTV are completely ignorant of them. They have no idea. Why aren't you in radio, Oscar?
Well, you know, if someone's going to offer me the sort of money that they've offered to Rush Limbaugh, maybe I'd be tempted.
Well, you know it's peanuts, don't you? Unless you're
well, I know there's not really any money in radio, is there? For the most part, certainly not in this country. Unless you get a Jonathan Ross or a Terry Wogan type of job. There's those one or two there that pay big money. But otherwise, it's a case of I couldn't take the pay cut, isn't it?
There is money still at the commercial, you know, at the entrepreneurial level in radio. When commercial radio started up, I was offered a role on the board of a radio station, and I used to pitch up at the board meetings offering thoughts and ideas about how the output and the content could be, you know, tweaked and augmented. And as the months turned into years, it gradually became apparent to me, and this was never discussed, but it became apparent to me that improving the content to them meant making it cheaper without losing any of the ratings, because all they were doing was sitting and waiting for it to be purchased. That was it. That was the business plan. That was the total business plan. Now, I think that still is in the minds of most people who go buying radio stations, that someday somebody's going to come along and pay 3 times what they paid for it. So
I've known people swear blind that they're never going to sell out, and they do.
But I don't think there are many radio stations that are in it to make money by creating cracking programmes and therefore getting a big audience and therefore selling lots of advertising. Mind you, you've
got to have a passion for it, haven't you? It's something you've got to have a passion for, and it is an unusual business structure because it's this triangular structure which is unusual in business.
What do you mean?
Where in a sense you're trying to attract listeners, and then the listeners, because you've got the listeners, the advertisers then come to you as your clients. So it's a bit of an unusual way.
Let's keep this going. Yeah. We've run out of time, but what we'll do, Oscar, I'm very grateful for your intelligence and your contribution and also your technological skills in sorting Skype out. Let's keep this conversation up there, and we'll do a bit more of it tomorrow when it'll be just me on my own from 10 until midnight tomorrow night.
Sounds good to me.
Cheers, mate.
Bye. You missed your chance. You can't talk to Oscar. Right, hello?
Look, I'm just wrapping up here.
I don't want to stop the flow. I have a very important point to make.
It's over.
Well, in that case, it's not that important. But, you know, the thing you was on about going to Christmas, going to heaven, not for Christmas.
Yes.
You just go to heaven. Then what was the point? Did you say what was the best day of doing it?
Yeah, go on then.
Well, it's Tuesday tomorrow, isn't it?
Yes.
Your birthday the other day, wasn't it?
No.
All right, then. John Lennon died today. No, yesterday. Hey?
I know what you're talking about. Have you come here to die?
No, I haven't come here to die.
No.
It's too raw, my friend Philip. So we want to decide, because we thought it was a quiz, and we could win something, the best day, if we could choose the best day, name your calendar.
Tomorrow. We'll finish the conversation tomorrow.
We're going to heaven.
No, I've got to... Sorry about that.